The Thinking Tackle Podcast.
I don't know what happened to it. It took us about 10 minutes to get it into the pond, so hopefully it was still alive when it seemed to swim off all right. But you just used to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, and I think with goldfish as well and like koi carp.
Yeah, they outgrow people's ponds, don't they? And
you just
people
think,
chuck them in.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Luke Stevenson, good to have you on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so hopefully this one's going to go better than our last podcast.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Luke, have you seen the start of our last one?
No.
Oh.
Don't watch it.
Well, I might put it on the TV.
Danny will sack me for that now.
Why?
But Danny loves the intro.
Yeah.
You haven't got it on there, Tobe, have you?
I can find it.
No,
Give me
don't
2
do
seconds.
that. Don't do that.
I'm going to have to. If Luke's not seen it.
Masterclass.
Right.
Great podcast,
Yeah.
content-wise. The presenter was a little bit shaky.
Right.
So you imagine working with Dovey and Damo and Danny.
Yeah.
All day, Danny was like, we're going to give you a hard time on this podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dovey's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's not going to affect me, guys. That is not going to affect me. At the start of the show, right, we had to wait for this intro to come up. So we'd done the Masterclass 7 intro.
Yeah.
It was absolutely terrifying.
Right.
They're all sat there. Everyone's quiet. You sat there watching. You're thinking, it's like 10, 9. It's right. So we've just seen there, and it was, and I got. So how was the podcast for you guys, Danny? How was the podcast? No, Simon. It was Masterclass. And I kept saying podcast, didn't I?
Mate, I've got it on.
He's all right, isn't he? He can just hide behind there, right? And just, it was.
Tell you what, Luke, here you go. This is just for you, actually.
Thank you very much, Tobe.
Not my fault.
So, not your fault.
Not my fault, no.
So on the show today, we've got the presenters of the podcast.
No,
we're gonna have words with this after.
Presenter of the podcast. Don't look at Tobe like we're going to edit this out, right?
We're going to edit this
we
out.
are going to destroy you today. It's
going to be a bad night for you.
You're giving us.
It's going to be a bad night.
Loads of ammunition. We're the
I can see
presenters
it.
of Masterclass. You're the presenter of the podcast.
Right, stop it there.
All right.
That's right.
Oh.
That was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Yeah.
You know, it was horrible. For the first 15 minutes, I did not know. I didn't know any question that I asked. I didn't even know that what was coming out my mouth.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, look at him grinning away there. He's loving it, isn't he?
There was a lot of silent laughter for me in that
It
opening
was.
couple of minutes.
Yeah. So I had to try and remember to. So if I said to Luke Stevenson, "Welcome to Masterclass 7."
Yeah.
Luke, at the start of the show, we normally ask for a gift.
Yeah.
Have you got anything?
Yeah, I've got
you got
my
anything nice for
my
us?
old battered up Gerry Hammond book, Still Searching. Like, I've read it probably God knows how many times, but it's a very inspiring book. I actually struggled to think of a guess of a gift to bring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got another one now. So
Right. Yeah. Thanks very much.
It's
Well, this one looks.
captivating book. Yeah.
It's a great book. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant, incredible. Yeah.
Why do we keep reading it over and over again? It's like
you nip up to the toilet with it for 20 minutes and sit on the toilet and read. Just pick up any old chapter, and it takes you there. It's got
does.
a knack of that. And
have you got a specific chapter in that book that you really like more than others?
It's hard to say, really. Probably not. They're all. Tulpits is pretty.
I was going to say Tulpits.
Yeah. You said that.
Yeah.
It is. That's really cool. It's but all of them, they take you there. They really inspire. If you're not sort of up for it, you can't help but read a chapter of that and sort of want to go fishing.
Yeah. We want another Gerry Hammond book out soon, don't we?
Yeah.
But no, definitely inspiring. That book looks
That's been
battered and
carpy.
carpy
It's got
and-
wet and God knows where the sleeve is.
Yeah.
But it's been in several fishing rucksacks
Let's have it.
and whatnot. And,
Yeah, it's definitely done the rounds, Luke, hasn't it? Gerry Hammond's signature in there as well.
yeah, no, it's yeah.
That was nice. That was nice that he signed all these books
Yeah.
before as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sunning Eye on there.
Sonning, yeah.
Yeah.
Mega.
Yeah. That was a great chapter.
Yeah, they all were equally. There's
He caught loads
some of the imagery as well is
yeah.
Just brilliant.
Who was it? Was it Glyn that done the art, some of the drawings and illustrations in this book?
Believe so.
You got to be careful what you say on this podcast, because if it's wrong, you can never take it back.
Yeah.
The sunning stuff, because he caught so many he never caught that fish, did he?
No. No.
But he caught.
Big pit, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
Still is.
Still is. Do you know much about it nowadays?
Not really. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe new fishing. I'm not sure. I think the Reading area.
Yeah.
In general is. Yeah.
Yeah. Special area, isn't it?
It is. There seem to be feeder lakes.
Yeah.
That seem to have fed, some of those other lakes.
Yeah, perhaps so. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on the history of him, but yeah.
Simon Scott, his podcast will be out before this one anyway. But he was on, and just water clarity, decent quality water, and
that's
all
everything,
that.
isn't it?
Everything just just sort of coming together.
Yeah.
So for the listeners and viewers that don't know you, you're an Essex-based angler. You catch a lot of carp. So when did you start carp fishing, and how did it all sort of start for you?
So I started carp fishing probably the age of 14 or 15, something like that, but fished from the age of 3 or 4, I suppose. I'd
really,
go with
that
my
young?
dad. Yeah, I remember catching a 3.5 pound rainbow trout out of a friend's pond it's not a pond, it was a lake in their garden when I was 3 years old. Well, I hooked it, and then I think my dad sort of reeled it in and whatnot. And but that was I was 3. He obviously just gave me a rod just to keep me quiet, but I'd always gone with him right from a real young age, and then like everyone does, eventually progress into carp fishing.
So can you remember that clearly?
Yeah. I remember things like that better than I do what I was doing last week.
Crikey, I was still in my cot then, fast asleep.
Don't think so. You was at secondary school, I reckon.
He was in college by then, wasn't he?
So, crikey, that was really young. And your dad does a lot of fishing, doesn't he? Does he fish with Zen?
Yeah, he does. He barbel fishes with him. He doesn't really do as much now as he used to. But yeah, if he fishes for anything, he'll fish the rivers for barbel. That's what he loves to do. Yeah.
So was he quite a prolific local Essex angler? Or?
Not really. He didn't do loads of carp fishing. Sort of did in the 70s and 80s, I suppose.
Yeah.
Loves tench fishing and sort of. Yeah, he doesn't. He fishes for carp, or did, but his fishing now is quite limited. His time's quite limited. Doesn't do as much, but if he does, he'll go up on. To the Y or whatever and barbel fish for a few nights or a few days or whatever.
Lovely.
Now he'll go and fish the days and stay in a hotel overnight. He's not very hardcore.
My dad done a little bit of fishing, but not an awful amount. He did fish as a kid, but I never had a dad that could be a mentor.
Yeah,
he was a mentor to me, but not necessarily in fishing terms.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it like having a dad that actually does do a bit more fishing? Do you feel that you're learning?
Yeah.
Quicker
when you're younger. Yeah, I learned the basics of watercraft, if you like, which I think helps carp fishing, doesn't it? When you fished for other things beforehand, and that definitely helped without a doubt. Yeah, you're a rounded angler, aren't you? I think if you've fished for other species and other situations and that sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you find that he taught you the more of the basics?
Yeah.
The essential parts of what you need to be a good angler.
That's it. Yeah, the foundations, and you build on that through experience and time on the bank, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah.
But
definitely.
fundamentals are in you from right from the get go, I think.
You say that, but I mean, there's a lot of people that there are anglers around that kind of come in and certainly miss all that. But those fundamentals, I think with your fishing, there seems to be a lot of it is based around very, very good watercraft, and that if that can be taught to you at an early age, that's an advantage, isn't it?
I think so. I'd like to think so. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are other anglers that come into it just carp fishing, and they might be technically brilliant, but maybe lack that something. I don't know. trying to pull people apart, but
No.
but being able to trot a float and just basic watercraft can really help with hunting carp, can't it?
Yeah. Do you look at yourself as a hunter?
I suppose.
Yeah.
What? Because of the hair, like hunter gatherer. Is that
Hair's
what you're
great.
saying?
Actually, Elliot sent me a message actually before you were coming on here to say,
yeah.
what was it? What sort of rollers do you use?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Is that typical of Elliot?
yeah. It's quite tame for him.
You guys are pretty good friends, aren't you?
Yeah, we're good mates.
Yeah. So he gets all your secretive information. He's privy to everything, is he?
Yeah, it goes two ways, doesn't it?
Does it? It works
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah, you got to hold something against him, otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thought you came across really well on the topography, Elliot's channel.
Yeah.
You've been on a couple of those now.
Yep.
Does it get easier for you? Is that your sort of thing?
I'd say it gets easier, but no, sitting here right now is not. It's not my. I wouldn't say it's my thing by any means, but yeah, I think being in front of a camera can become easier. But it's a real art. It's being comfortable can be a real art in front of a camera, can't it?
Yeah, Danny said on that last podcast, he's right, that the people that struggle in front of the camera, the people that are actually trying to pretend too much.
Yeah, perhaps.
If you're just being yourself,
yeah,
I think Dan's quite a good illustration of that as well.
yeah,
You've just got to let go and be yourself. Haven't
yeah.
you?
I think
And,
so. Well, yeah.
some people are just a lot better at it than others.
Those guys are great at it, aren't they?
That Danny's amazing. When you have a conversation with him,
Yeah.
there's never a word out of place.
Yeah, sure.
It's all, and everything seems to make sense. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's good advice. I think you can learn. I think everybody probably has to learn that as well to just be able to.
Yeah, I suppose to a degree, but experience is good, isn't it? But I think you're either a natural or you're not, and then you just build on that, don't you? I think. But I'm far from a natural. But
No, but I've said to you though, Luke, there is still something. When I watched the first one, I did watch and I thought you look a little bit different, come across a little bit differently, and because you've probably not done that stuff before, it comes across quite naturally as well. And I think our listeners and viewers, it was like with our last podcast, thank the listeners and viewers, by the way, because they haven't really given me too much of a hard time. And I thank them very much for that. Maybe somewhere else down the line.
Yeah.
But because they like seeing naturalness as well. And
yeah,
they know that we can't all be word perfect.
yeah. Well, that's the good thing about this podcast. It's just different. It's real, isn't it? It's I certainly I've enjoyed watching them, and they're different from the norm, and yeah, they're real. I think people relate to that, can't they?
But I could relate to watching you on that. I really related to that. I was interested to know what else you'd done, and obviously when you're making a film like that, it's quite limited the amount of time that you can actually spend on it. So you with this, we can sit down for longer, and you always accept as well with this that people are going to sort of sit down and they might be a little bit nervous to start off with. The more you get into a conversation, the kind of the easier it gets. And I think that was good advice. It's trying not to be someone that you're not.
Yeah, if it's easier said than done, isn't it? But I think you just got to let go, and it is what it is. It's yeah. So
recently, for the listeners, viewers that are not aware, you were fishing on a lake called Carthagena, and I had a bit of a story with it. I went over there maybe 5 years ago with a fishing friend to fish on the river, and I didn't really know too much about the lake, but we fished on the river, stayed in Gerry's lodge there, and then my friend happened to mention the lake behind, and it's it's a typical old schooly kind of. It's a proper carp lake, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How big is it?
I suppose it's around 8 acres, I'd say.
Yeah,
something like that. So quite small. With sort of it's like a sort of a boomerang shape in a way, I suppose, with sort of a bowl end, one end, and two sort of channels.
And you started. So Gerry runs that as a syndicate.
Yep.
And is this your second? You've got a winter ticket.
Yeah, that's it.
Not a full syndicate ticket.
So I did last winter, which runs. It's an early ticket. Starts early, so it's an autumn winter. I think it was started October. So I did a year. Or I did a winter then, and I've done this winter. So I've had two winter tickets so far. But
anything in particular about that? I liked it, but to be fair, I didn't know. In the lodge, there was a photo album in there, and we were going through some of the fish in there, and I think the biggest fish in the lake is called Tango, isn't it?
Yep.
Big common.
Yep, that's it.
And there were some big old-fashioned looking, very old fish in there.
Yeah.
But I didn't think again about it really until I started working here, and some of the guys were fishing up there, and seeing the pictures of those fish. They really are. They're really classic.
Yeah, they are.
Old carp went in the late 70s.
That's it. Yeah. Sort of 78, I believe. I know Gerry, when he took over the lake, the guy that had him before him, had stocking records, and they were stocked as fingerlings in sort of late 70s. Yeah.
So they've gone for a bit of a miraculous survival there in the first place, because going in at that size, they're open to being taken by everything. Really,
yeah,
aren't
absolutely.
They?
Yeah. There's probably a lot more of them that went in than what are left. But
have you seen other fish in that area? So that's in the Lea Valley.
Yeah.
Some of the fish along that kind of through that area, they look quite similar to that. Do you think it was a stocking that they stocked all of those lakes around the same time?
I don't know. Perhaps not. But there's a few that were maybe. But I know the Lea Valley parks have done a lot of the stockings, and they were certainly more recent. They were sort of maybe 90s, that sort of thing. Again, I'm not that up on it, but those carver fish, they're a unique fish, aren't they? They're incredible. That's what drew me to the place in the first place. I'd never set eyes on the lake when I first drove through the gates. I'd never seen it before. That wasn't the lake. It was all about them fish. And pictures I'd seen. The lake's it's always been quite under the radar, really. It's been quite. You don't see many pictures in the press about it. It's kept sort of as a bit of a hidden gem. I think it's sort of a bit more known about now. It's got to be because of the size of the fish. They've bombed on. They've gone through the roof. Some of the fish weights and stuff. But when they were sort of low 40s and 30 pounders and stuff, that in this day and age that doesn't make the headlines, does it? And they were able to be kept relatively under wraps.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And it was definitely a hidden gem. Is Gerry happy to publicise it? I mean, we're talking about it now, so
yeah, no, he's happy for it to be publicised, but I don't think he's ever had issues selling tickets. I mean, he's got 2 lakes there. Both have got real big fish in them now, but even when they were modestly sized fish, like weren't breaking record, but they're still mega fish in mega lakes.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever struggled to sell tickets. No.
It's a nice syndicate as well. It's ran as an old-fashioned syndicate should be ran.
It's proper. Yeah, it's mega with a lodge, proper old school wooden lodge. Looks like it's been there forever. Full photo albums in there. There's even like a little bar area with bottles of shorts, or the bottles aren't there anymore, but it's pictures on the wall everywhere, and a couple of big freezers so the lads can put their bait in it. It's proper. Yeah, it's not over the top, is it? No, it's not. It's not.
Just,
it's not. It's a spit and sawdust old-fashioned old hut, But there's been a few shindigs in there over the years.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, definitely. So, did it surprise you the size of the fish that were it was producing then as well? I mean, obviously you're fishing there because of the carp themselves, and not about the size, but obviously the size as well is they're obviously doing really, really well at the moment.
Yeah.
So going on there, I think everybody wants to know about your actual fishing on there. Did you go on there with any sort of preconceived ideas about how you wanted to fish it?
No, none at all. I probably should have done a bit more homework, really. I always remember my first trip, as I was driving down the track, the first swim you come to was actually a really good swim, and it was free. And as further I got up the track on this first particular trip, the lake was quite busy. And by the time I'd got back to this swim, which I'd spoke to someone on the phone, it was good. There was someone in there. It was a Friday night or Thursday night or whatever, and But yeah, I'd never even set eyes. I knew nothing. All I knew was I had a couple of mates that fished it in the past, and it had a bit of winter form, and it was a small-ish lake, gated, perfect winter ticket. If you're going to do a bit of winter fishing, it was ideal. Comfortable swims. It was ideal for a winter. That's sort of why I'd sort of toyed with the idea of fishing it for a few years, you know. But ultimately, that's why I joined it.
Is there anything in particular with the lake that would mark it out as being a particularly good winter water? I mean, it's a pretty hard lake anyway, isn't it, mate? Some of the guys, they're not catching loads of carp.
Yeah, no, I suppose it is. It's tricky.
But as a winter water, does it stand out from anywhere else? You know.
Yeah, well, it's definitely got winter form without doubt. It's a nice depth out in the bowl. I suppose it's 12 foot, that sort of thing. It's manageable. You're never a million miles off them, you know.
Are you looking for depth and stuff for winter fishing? Are you trying to fish lakes that maybe a little bit shallower?
No, I fished deep. I fished Bundy's Pit,
mega deep,
which is mega deep, and I fished little estate lakes 3 or 4 or 5 foot deep. So no, it's always about the carp really. But
so do you find that the carp generally from lake to lake, they could be a 40-acre pit, or they're just different and they just behave?
Yeah, I think so.
In their own way.
You can. There's certain guidelines, isn't there, about times of year and different things, but ultimately they'll be where they want to be at any given time, won't they?
What sort of guidelines would you be looking for?
Springtime, shallower water. Autumn time, deeper, siltier bits of the lake. As a rough, you know. Winter time out, and you know, if there's weed left in the lake, coots are diving around weed beds and that, they'll always hold carp, won't they? But generally, I just try and find fish.
So as a water, Carthagena just kind of offered a little bit of everything. Really,
it was perfect. Ticks all the boxes, and so just before I got the ticket, what probably spurred me on to ring him up or text him. I texted him and said about it, because I spoke to him the year previous, and he said have a winter ticket next year, and so I saw a picture of a long scaly one called June, like £42 or something. It was on social media, or it might have been in a mag. But I remember looking at that, thinking, wow, you know, and quickly texted him, and he said, "Oh, there's only one. You've got the only one left." And it was like, I remember it was like August or September when I sent the message. So I thought, you know, I'd got in touch with him with plenty of time, you know. But so I was sort of cut it fine getting one in the beginning, really. But yeah.
But you so as soon as you got the ticket and you could get on the water, you were down there straight away.
Yeah, I went probably the first week the ticket started, maybe a day or two into the new ticket. The first weekend, basically.
I think I would always ask this question to people that, are starting to fish in new water, especially someone that's a successful angler like yourself. I mean, are you planning a lot before, or are you just taking each session as it comes and then just trying to build a picture, or did you have anything in particular that you thought you could take on there and be successful?
No, I didn't. I went on there cold, really. I think I'd been doing my house all summer. So I hadn't really fished. And with this ticket like looming, I'd probably been done a month previous, but didn't want to get into anywhere because I had my heart set on fishing Carthagena to start of October. So I went on there a bit cold, and I generally like to, I'll just go on somewhere and just work it out, and just, you're building all the time. You're building on what you see and what you find. And it's, you just sort of work it out as you go, really.
So what were you learning from the get-go on there?
I was getting on fish. Regularly, like the first trip.
The other anglers getting on fish as well?
Well, there was fishing showing in people's swims, yeah. They were I found them quite active. And from the word go, there were fish getting caught out of it. I worked it out as to be, you needed to be in probably 4 swims, 2 and 2 opposite. The bulk of the shows I was seeing were around there, and when fish were caught, they were from those four swims, really. I quickly found out that out of those 4 swims, there was one that was that was always left alone. I fished it my first trip. That was when I've seen my first couple of fish were bang out in front of this little pontoon. Even fast forwarding like this winter, it's quite a quiet swim. You could always get back in there. Although my first few trips, I never caught anything. Maybe first month, something like that. I was getting on fish but not catching them.
Why was it getting left alone?
I don't know. Maybe because it had a swim to the side of it, which was a real good summer swim with a big like gravel hump out in front of it. And because they're so close, I think it was just the lads that fished it didn't tend to go in the left one. They'd go in the right hand swim, the steps or whatever I think it's called. And I think people out of habit just tended to do that for that swim to get left alone. But I might be completely wrong, but from the 2 winters I've done on there, it's definitely a quieter swim. The 2 swims opposite it were on the track, so you didn't have to barrow to them, so they would always be probably the first one's gone. This one was right round the back, so you had to barrow around and whatnot. But it was always
funny how
it was right in the mix of where
everything was.
Yeah, right central to everything. Yeah,
but it's surprising you don't need very much kind of clear space where the fish are feeling a little bit safe. A relatively small area for the fish to. They're obviously frequenting all those areas, but when they're coming into an area that they're just not used to finding lines,
for sure they'll be there.
They're more likely to get caught.
Without doubt, yeah. They're a little bit guards are down and whatnot, but they definitely like that little area. But I was getting on them last year, and I was fishing well. Like I was flicking hinges out, like little light leads out into sort of clean, silty area with a few pouchfuls of boilie over the top, and sitting back and still seeing a couple of shows, and then by the morning nothing had happened. Are
you a marker float sort of guy? Do you do a lot of plumbing around?
No, I tend to not. I fish for drops really. Mainly. I don't tend not to use a float.
So it doesn't bother you too much depth wise. So you're feeling for a drop. So you're feeling for the lead hitting the bottom and estimating the approximate depth from that.
Yeah, I can gauge it by around a foot or two, a foot either way, I suppose. Depths and the bottom you can on the drag. You get a rough idea.
So the drag is when you're pulling the lead back across.
Yeah,
the
lead or an old rig.
Yeah.
You get a rough idea, but I tend to. I'll base my fishing around what I see, and if the fish want to be in the shit, then
wherever they want to be,
I'll fish from. Yeah.
Do you put a lot of emphasis on being very, very quiet and trying to fish so they don't really
try to be? Yeah. I don't really want to be bombing a swim up for hours and then expecting a big rare carp to come along and hang itself. But sometimes you've got to make a bit of disturbance. But I'll always try and keep everything.
Would you find on there that disturbance would make a big difference?
Yes and no. Perhaps they would definitely get in quieter areas over the course of not just a day, but over the course of a couple of weeks. If there was an area getting left alone, but over the course of a couple of weeks there'd be carp in there. At some point you'd see them, be it after dark, middle of the night, whatever.
That was the other thing as well. You seem to be very on the ball when it comes to spotting fish on the lake. I mean, do you think you were finding fish in certain areas that the anglers, the other guys, maybe weren't necessarily seeing? Yeah, perhaps.
Like a lot of the shows, I was getting on fish. A lot of the shows would be after dark, classic autumn stuff. Like they'd be showing from anything from sort of 7 p.m. right through to 2 in the morning. There would be an hour or 2 hours in that time where they would really go. I don't think they were getting picked up on a lot,
That's a good advice for the listeners and viewers as well, isn't it? That November time from 5 o'clock onwards into
classic.
That's when you're gonna.
Yeah, daytimes can look completely devoid, can't they? Like floating leaves, and it can look really quite bleak, getting cold and whatnot. But those darkness hours, the lakes come alive, and that's certainly how I was getting on fish.
Just using your eyes. It sounds so straightforward.
Well, yeah, but no, it is, isn't it?
So your first year on there. So can you the first capture you had on there? Can you remember that?
Yeah, just. That was not this winter. Last winter. That was probably around after about a month of nothing. There were fish were getting caught. There would be maybe 2 or 3 bites a week. So, and those other lads that were catching them weren't doing anything drastically different. But I did feel there were bites to be had. In the areas I was fishing, I had to come up with whatever it took, basically. And so my first trip, I'd had maggots, and rather than catapulting, just seemed to be everyone would be catapulting 14, 15, 16 millers out, a few pouchfuls and a rig, you know. It was quite wooden, you know what I mean? And so I decided to spawn my bait and use some bits, and like so chop boilie and maggot, a couple of other bits, and like PVA bags of maggot and crushed boilie, and sort of like winter sort of stuff really, but a little bit earlier in the year. And first trip out, I'd got on fish in one of these two sort of going swims, if you like.
So they were quite well fished swims.
They were well fished, yeah. So first, within a few hours, I'd caught one, like a low 20 common. I slipped him back and thought, we're onto something here. And by the morning, next fish I had was one real mega old one. The leather, like upper 30, I think I can't remember exact weight, 38, 12,
right,
39, 4,
wow.
something in that order, but mega fish. Like one of the ones I'd had pictures on my phone and I'd looked at before I'd joined the lake. I'd known about that particular fish for quite a few years, and yeah, get a bite early hours, and it was that one, and then while that one was in the net, an hour or so later, the other rod had gone, and that was another, like an upper 20, like scaly one, like in their winter colours,
wow.
like mega carp.
And just saying, like I say, that isn't necessarily a particularly common occurrence on there to get multiple hits.
No.
So were you tramming rods close together and fishing very, very tight?
Yeah. By this stage, I sort of come to this conclusion. I had it in my head. Like I spoke to a couple of the lads, and like they'd said that no one had really used maggot. And
do you not find that surprising?
Yes and no. I think carp anglers can be quite samey, can't they? Not human beings in general. I think it can be like often. It's hard to describe, but when he said it, it sort of made sense. Like I could see the lads; they weren't doing nothing different, and I just sort of had it in my head. I'll have a go, and I wanted to use them over the winter anyway. But I thought, I can't do much worse than what I'm doing. I was struggling, and I was fishing two rods on a net. I was spomming down the middle and a rod either side. And this first trip out, I had 3 fish in a night. And I remember kicking myself, thinking, if I'd have been doing this a month ago, when I was like on fish in the evenings, like they were sloshing on me, and there was fish getting caught around me, not always while I was on the lake, but in the midweek while I wasn't there, be a few fish out. The lake was doing them for how much that lake, for the amount of captures that lake does generally that time of the year. It seemed like it was doing them.
What is it with those baits as well? Because I mean, you're still fishing a period of the year where the fish are relatively active and they're still building up their fat reserves and stuff. So, what is it with those smaller baits? Do you think that is it? I mean, is that what it is? That it's being able to feed on eat more digestible stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's different, isn't it? It's being different's key all the time.
You think the different thing is the main?
I think so. Perhaps they've been hammered on. They've had boilie thrown at them right from the spring, haven't they? Right through the summer into the autumn. Their weights are up. They don't need that bait like they do in the summer when after spawning, where they really need that bait. And I think they would. It's just different. I think they're harvesting sort of more natural type food. In the dying weed beds and whatnot. I think maggots and casters, that sort of thing, those more natural sort of baits, that's what they want. And especially if they're not seeing them, if other anglers aren't using it, then that's game on, isn't it? I think
definitely. Matching maggots with possibly bloodworm or some. Actually, just going off it, I was talking to a guy. I think it was yesterday. I can't remember the guy's name now. We obviously speak to too many people. All my memory's getting bad, Toad. What do you reckon?
We said this morning your memory was getting bad, didn't we?
God, it's getting bloody awful.
Got a head like a sieve, haven't you?
I've got a lot on my mind, Toad.
Oh, is that the excuse?
There was a Netflix thing called Who Killed Malcolm X?
Yeah,
and
I saw that. Well, I didn't see it last night. I saw it on there last night. Yeah.
All right, you're going to watch that?
Yeah, I might do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I read the book about a year ago.
Right. Okay.
And it's like, who did kill Malcolm X? And I can't even remember anything about the book. It's
right.
bloody, it's awful.
Good book.
He sold that really well, mate.
Well, it's on Netflix now anyway. So if anyone wants to, I'll watch it again.
Yeah. All right.
But no, I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. No, I was talking to this guy who was saying that on the Terry Hearn films where he went into the tackle shop to buy the casters. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What was the name of the tackle shop again? I've forgotten the name of the shop.
Forgotten that as well, have you?
All right. He's getting a bit too big for his boots, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And people,
all the tackle shops ran out of maggot.
They were running out of casters.
Yeah.
And if someone like Terry is putting it out there that he's using, maggots and casters, and the other thing is that you can now to swing that round a little bit. Once everybody else on the lake is using maggots and casters, do you think then you would be looking for something different?
Yeah, well, again, it's that being different thing. There's a time and a place for everything, isn't there? As well, it's certain times, but of course, if everyone's using them, then they're never going to be as good as if 2 or 3 people are using them or one person.
But everything was lined up for you anyway.
Well, it was all set up. It was the stars had aligned, I think, for that to happen.
And sorry, this was the first season you were fishing.
Yes. Yeah.
So after that first result, what happened after that?
So I carried on. I'd caught a few more, but by this time it had got really quite cold. We're well into the winter now, probably. It was around Christmas time. I didn't do much fishing around Christmas, but I was using those same baits and that out in those same areas, and I'd noticed I probably caught maybe a handful more, 2, 3, 4 more, but I was struggling to get into the swims I needed to be, and I was finding that I sort of needed to be fishing. If I was going to be fishing opposite, I needed to be fishing long, and even in those swims, I needed to be out in that middle third. Do you know what I mean? The extremities of the swims, I needed to be. That's where the fish were holding up, like those bits at like sort of 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock out the swim where people are using 2 rods. Those areas had been done to death. You know what I mean? There was people coming out them swims and then back in them swims doing the same things.
Are you paying a lot of attention to where people are casting?
Yeah, I'll watch people.
That's what you do.
I'm watching everything. Yeah. And you see patterns emerging, don't you?
Within the way people are fishing and the fish's behaviour as well.
Everything. Yeah, but I wasn't going to be wanting to fish on top of I could just see piles of bait out there. Like the coots were coming along and diving 30 yards out in front of the swims, straight out in front of the swims, coming up with bait in the main swims, or 40 yards out, whatever. But I felt I needed to be out in the extremities, sort of no man's land, pushing your luck area, and that's where I was catching my fish. That's where I caught the next few fish.
Similar methods.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I sort of got to early spring, sort of February type, this sort of time, February, and the bites were starting. I'd like to say more, but probably only 2 or 3 trips where I felt I could have caught and didn't, and that's when I started fishing up in the water a bit more. Again, I caught a few like that, but that
zig fishing.
Yeah. Again, that hadn't really been used on there much. I've got a couple of mates. I've got mate Tony who's fished on there for years, and so he's what he says is pretty bang on. He's got quite good knowledge of. And he said that the zigs hadn't been really used much over there. I think Gerry might have. He likes fishing a zig, doesn't he? But whether he's used them on there, I don't know. But
do you do a lot of zig fishing normally?
No, I tend not to. No, I've done a bit, but I will if I have to. If you know what I mean. Early spring's great for a minute. Little bits of black foam.
Yeah. So you saw that as another opportunity that
was
take
there.
advantage of it.
And I caught straight away on them, but it fizzled out as quick as it started. I think there was another lad was using them as well, sat around the same time, Tony, and then I think a few other lads cottoned onto it, and then there was a few lost, and then boom, that was that.
But it did make a difference to the lake when people started using it. It just goes to show, doesn't it?
Being different is key. Like fishing in areas where they don't get fished for, fishing from baits that they're not used to. It's all there's always something that can.
Do you feel like when you're doing something different, obviously there's a limited amount of time you can do that until somebody starts to replicate what you're doing? How long do you think you can possibly sort of stay on a method for before they?
Yeah, you can. Keeping things close to your chest can be. Sometimes you need to, don't you? But somewhere like Carthagena, it's not that sort of place. In as much as it's quite a close knit little syndicate, everyone knows each other, and so outwardly lying and keeping things completely under wraps isn't always the one on them sort of lakes. You're fishing with mates and you're all on the level, and it's.
But I guess when you see a group of anglers all start to say, "Get on that method," it can be surprising how quickly a method can blow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and they're old clever carp as well. They're no mugs.
So the zig fishing on there. Yeah, he's laughing again. Yeah,
I tried to keep.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you be the host, Toby? All right. So yeah, I mean, people all sort of going on to the same method, same rig and stuff. I mean, it's you have got a limited lifespan potentially with those. It's interesting to see that when everybody does do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I think things come and go, don't they? Things that worked like 2 or water apart a few years back, they have cycles and they come back. Corn or something, or bright single hook baits, different things. They soon blow, or whatever you want to call it, finish up, being less effective basically. But things have a cycle, just like fashions. Things come around again, don't they?
And that cycle
is just getting on those things before they're done to death, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
you're
fishing
like
areas and different things. And
you're like the Gianni Versace of carp
it.
fishing kind of development there. Yeah. But you need to be like, you're right. You need to be the first one on something, and and obviously if you're just doing it and there's nobody else around, you can obviously make.
You can.
Did the zig fishing stop because there were lots of people doing it and fish got hooked, or just because that wasn't really the one?
No, I mean, it is a relatively low. I don't know exactly the stock of the lake. It's not tons and tons of fish, and remember, it was still cold. It was February sort of time. It weren't lambing season quite yet, and I don't know. They were just It's hard to put your finger on exactly why, but bites did sort of dry up as quickly as they sort of started. Might have been depths. I might have been fishing them wrong. I'm no expert at zig fishing, but I did play around and fish.
Did you catch them on different depths on the zigs?
Yeah, but I can't remember exactly what the depths were. But yeah, there were different depths, different times, day, night. There was definitely room for more sort of lots of playing around. There's only so much playing around you can do with 2 rods.
Yeah,
as well, But,
more the upper layers of the water than the lower.
Yeah, perhaps, but maybe I missed a trick there.
Right.
I've done a little bit, like couple of trips since Christmas, and the fish I've been watching fish out of trees and whatnot, and they're swimming real low to the deck. The fish I've been seeing, even when it's been like bright high pressure. I dropped in and saw an area I've been fishing just lately. The area was quite milked up and the fish were low, even though if I hadn't seen them fish from the bank, I'd be thinking if I was going to be zig fishing, I'd have been 2/3 of the way up or whatever. I'd have been miles out. So yeah, I think there's fishing them low can be good, definitely.
Yeah, just experimenting a bit more. So was that the end of the first season on there for you?
Yeah. I went elsewhere come March, but with a real plan, rubbing my hands together for this coming winter.
Right.
I had a plan,
And that was based around bait and
Yeah, but what I'd done and what I'd caught them on, fishing the bits and fishing out in not always where they showed 20 and 30 yards out. I needed to be out in them middle zones for the bites, I think.
and you don't know whether the fish's behaviour is going to be the same, from one year to the next.
There was that,
so you get on there.
I had it in my head it was going to be, but there was always that element of doubt. Would they behave in the way they did? And
yeah.
I remember thinking my biggest worry was that because the lake gets relatively weedy in the summer, and those open water areas, I was just hoping that there wasn't going to be like a big layer of blanket weed out there, or low lying weed where I couldn't get fish little bottom bait presented. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was my big worry, and I was thinking, is it all boils down to whether or not when I put a rod out, whether I get that lovely drop down through the water and a nice solid sort of, or just a nice silt drop and a drag,
But it was similar to the previous year.
It was bang on. That first cast went out, bang,
right,
perfect.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, like, game on.
Yeah, right. And you were seeing fish in the area?
No, that first trip I didn't. That first trip I got down, first trip of this winter, I got down and fished that way. First night, nothing, didn't see anything. And lake was relatively quiet. I saw Gerry when I was on my way in. He's working on the track, and he was saying that the lake, I think he'd even been fishing the lake. So that'll tell you that the lake was quite quiet. And sure enough, there was only 2 or 3 anglers on. I got into a swim where I thought I'd be, got the rods all sorted, got them done. I did on my lap, I did see some fish up the other end in some shallow water in a bay, but I sort of had it in my head, come the evening, come being it autumn time, they'd push out into the deeper water, and I'd be sitting pretty, but
you think that's what they were doing?
I sort of had it in my head that's what they would do, but come the morning, I was doubting that, and I went up the other end and I saw the same fish up in the end of this shallow bay that I'd seen the day before, some good uns and all, like a couple of real big uns, a dozen fish I was watching up there. So I moved up there and I ended up catching like 3 in a trip, that first trip, fishing up like chod rigs over like low lying blanket weed down the bottom of this bay, completely different to what I'd sort of in my head, how it would sort of pan out, but that's fishing, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess you learn something different from that as well, that you can still present over a slightly different bottom there, and still, we can have a preconceived idea about what the bottom needs to be like.
Yeah, but you just sort of, sometimes you got to just fish to what you see, don't you? And just.
But those low-lying chods, that's a method that you like to fish.
Yeah, they're good, aren't they?
Yeah,
I love them. Yeah.
Like you say, they're flexible, aren't they? And you can
great rig.
You're fishing all the time.
Yeah.
What about setting those sort of rigs up? Are you quite straightforward the way you set up a chod up?
Yeah. I'm not massively into rig mechanics. Like, I've got a few rigs I use and like they work. They're neat.
Particularly big hooks, or
size 4s I use. Yeah, strong. I always use strong kit. Like a lot of the lakes I fish will be quite snaggy. Weedy, demanding sort of lakes, fishing for big carp. So,
and what about going onto bottom baits and stuff like that? Would you, given the opportunity, especially fishing over bait, I mean, would you prefer to fish still a pop up, or? I do tend to, if I can, like, unless it's like blatantly clean, like clay or gravel, whatever. Ultimately, I like to use a hinge if I can get away with one. Well, just because you're worried about the hook point, or? Yeah, hook point. They're just good big fish hookers, aren't they? You're always presented nice. There's loads going for them. But obviously, if it's too blatant, I'm not going to fish a 2-inch pop up. I can't do it on a clean spot. I mean, I'm sure they work, and there's lads that do, but it's personal, isn't it? It's confidence thing. I'll use a bottom bait, but generally on a lot of these bigger pits and more wilder sort of lakes where they're weedy and whatnot, they're not massively clean areas. You often are fishing sort of where the fish are. It's not always perfect. Yeah, a rig like that is definitely it's so adaptable to all that sort of fishing. Yeah. So you caught 3 and then you just carried on. What fish were you catching at this point?
So that first trip, I had so what it was like. I was right around fishing right long into the bottom of this bay, tree-lined bay that had been sort of unfishable all summer. But this like weed had dropped, so I was fishing. Like the drops I was getting were horrendous. I was just about feeling the lead drop down, but just real soft drops, and like it was sort of solid out there. But that's where they were, and they were out there fizzing. I'd walk around the bottom of this bay, and every time I walked around there, I'd see fish coming through and a big sheet up, and they were just there and happy, you know. So, so that the first fish I had, I was due to go up the calf that morning. All the lads would go up the calf, and my mate Tone had come. Driven down the back of the swim on his way out of the lake to see if I was ready to go, and I just told him that I'd just got one rod back out because I'd reeled the rods in that morning, gone round to have a look, and they were all there, you know. So I got one rod back in, and I was just making my excuses to Tone why I couldn't come, and the rod's melted, so I've run back down the steps, like picked the rod up. I hadn't even looked out to see if I'd been birded or whatever. Bobbins just jammed up, and picked the rod up, and I'm walking back cranking because it was like it was a real hairy area, you know. If they had kited, they could have kited into like another bay. I was fishing, I was pushing my luck. It was definitely a hairy sort of area. So I'm pumping and pumping and pumping. Actually, he's got some footage of it on his iPhone. It was.
No, that would be good to see that actually.
But, so he so I'm pumping like a madman. Anyway, it's got into a sort of more sensible sort of relaxed a bit. It was about 30 yards out, and anyway. Cut a long story short, we get this fish in, and it's a mirror called Neptune, like an upper 30. I think again 38, 10 it might have been. Might have been 38 and a half. But anyway, big dark mirror. And yeah, so we'd done shots of that, and he had to explain to the lads why he didn't go down the calf. And I sort of said, I said I would keep this one between us, like no one else knows. And in the end, I thought better of it, and didn't.
He had to.
He went up the calf with big wet knees, like, you know, so where he'd been.
I just fallen in the leg, honestly, guys.
Down,
yeah.
But
do you think we miss a bit of a trick there at times? I know we've all been guilty of going up the calf at certain times of the day and just winding rods in. I mean, do you find, as well as finding areas of the lake that aren't being as heavily fished, you know, actually when anglers are winding lines in as well?
Can be, can't it?
Is that a routine on Carthagena? Do they tend to do that?
No, it's become a habit on a Saturday. I think
it's great.
I think the lads, they love
it. That's a highlight of the session.
Of course it is, yes. No, but it is. I don't think they've always done it, but it is become, but it's not early, like it's 10 o'clock, you know, it's not like they're going at 8, but yeah, even 10's early, isn't it?
I think 10's early.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, listen, I would have done if I hadn't gone round there and seen these fish. I got up, there's a little concrete building, like an old hut. And I got up this hut, and they're the same fish I'd been seeing the day before, but I don't think I'd ever I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be behind the rod with a rod out, because I was only using one rod down there, or whether I wanted to be with the rod in, round there watching them, you know what I mean? I was torn, but there was always a fish round there feeding. Like I'd see a big sheet up of bubbles, and then I'd see it rise up out the depths off the bottom and swim off and do a circuit. And so it was never a good time to be throwing a few baits in. There was always something passing through. But I felt like could get a bite 24 hours a day in that swim. It was quite electric.
We have to get some pictures of Neptune. Actually, have we got pictures of that yet?
Pass. Don't.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah. Okay. We'll make sure we put those pictures up as well. Yeah. So what time of the year are we into now?
So this is first week of no. So I started a little bit later. So maybe the full moon was. I remember. So I started a bit later because I'd been fishing another lake closer to home. So this was my first trip. Maybe like around the 20th of October, I'd guess. Maybe a bit less. It was just off the end of the full moon.
Sorry, you mentioned moons. I mean, do you fish? Do you plan sessions around moon phases?
No, I'd go when I can go.
Because the biggest carp in that lake is, as we said before, is a common,
there is that whole that.
Do you not buy that then, Luke?
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't, but I tell you what, I've noticed this year that on the new moons that I've fished, I've caught some big, special, rare carp on the new moon, bang on the new moon. There's something in that.
Because you tend to have a 3-day period, don't you?
Yeah,
So what the middle day, or
I don't know. I'm no expert on the phases. I mean, really, if I had anything about me, I'd look back at loads of pictures and you could work it out to dates, couldn't you?
Yeah, you don't
The
need
internet's
to.
brilliant, but it'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
I've done it
there's
before. I've done it before, and you know, and with you know, MetCheck, you can print off everything for every month of, you know, the year, every day of the year, really.
Yeah, the internet.
And then compare it to captures and stuff.
Yeah,
I find it hard to find patterns with.
I don't know. You tie yourself up in knots, wouldn't you? If
you'd never
careful.
Go fishing, would you? Or you'd only go.
You'd only go. Yes, yeah. That's probably why I don't read too much into it. But on the same. You know, I fished loads of full moons in the past when you're rubbing your hands together and you wake up in the morning all dejected and it just hasn't come to fruition. So, but yeah, there's certainly something in that new moon thing. I'd say last couple of years, I've caught some real special fish on that new moon or a day either side. There's got to be something in that. There's got to be, yeah.
So Carthagena, you were just after. Did you say you were just around a new moon phase at the time?
Yeah, So I did my first trip just after the full moon, the October full moon. That was my first trip, and then so my second trip, I baited that same bottom of that bay quite heavily. I remember throwing it. I had to go on the Sunday morning. Just had to go. Otherwise, I'd hung it out for the rest of the day. But I remember there being a lot of fish there, and with a 5 key bag of bait, and I'm throwing these baits over the top of these fish. It felt sacrilege to do, you know, but I did, and all week I was gunning to get back there,
was it just pure? So you were mixing maggot with boiling?
No. Up this end, I was just using straight boilie and chodrigs. It was like completely different to what I thought I was going to be doing. You know, it was, you couldn't really fish, but they'd have been digging them maggots out of that blanket weed for days, you know, and getting a bite would have been hard. Right. It was just straight boilie. So I've gone back down the lake the next week with a preconceived idea of I needed to get in that zone and fish one rod over to this area. And I did. I got there in the light and went round there, and the water was quite clearer than it was the week before. It just didn't feel. I never saw a fish come through, but I was thinking, it's late in the day, just losing the light. It was around 4:00. So I got back round to swim, got the one rod in, and never heard anything down there. It just didn't feel right. So by about 9, 10 o'clock at night, I could take no more. You're very shut off from the rest of the lake down there. It's a very all or nothing sort of zone. And I cranked him in, went for a trot up the other end, and I hadn't even got into one of the swims. I remember being between swims, looking through these sort of not so dense trees. I could see the lake, and I could see a set of rings out there. So as soon as I got round into a swim where I got a real good view of a load of white water, slosh, another one. I reckon I saw half a dozen shows in 10, 15 minutes sitting there. Enough was enough. I'd shot. There was only one angler on up that end. Well, only one angler on the whole lake. And so I shot off round, got my kit. I'd fished that swim the week before. So I wrapped up to the same zone, spawned the mix out there, bits and pieces, lots of maggot. 2 rods out on it, and then I saw another couple of shows bang on me after I got the rods in. Bearing in mind I've got 2 casts and I don't know, 6 or 8 spoms, big crashing in, you know. To then have them carp go over on me after that, I mean, that's the opposite to what you were saying before. It's but I had to get that bait out there. Every time I went in, I was thinking, that noise. But yeah, so anyway, by the morning, so I had a bite early morning, sort of an hour before light. Brutal fight, just kited on a long line, just beat me up. I got this fish in, and it was the most incredible carp. One called June, the one that I'd seen the picture of that sort of pushed me to get the ticket in the beginning. Went 44 1/4. Wow. But long, old, scaly. Yeah, Ben showed me some pictures of that fish. Oh, it's just mega, man. I couldn't believe it. I was just dumbstruck. And my mate came down and he'd been perch fishing on the river, like just down from Gerry's house the night before, and I'd been speaking to him the night before, and I quickly rang him, and he was on his way down to fish for the perch, and so he came in and nipped in and did some photos and got a bit of video for Elliot's photography and that, and it just this fish was just.
So did you think at that point, right, this is this a wrap now, or
this is it, like I've got them. As long as I can get back in the areas, I was already worrying about what's gonna, like, if I can get back in these zones next week. I was sort of forward thinking too much, but I went on to like catch some, like that was just the trip of a lifetime. Like it was just mega. Ended up with like seven. I did 4 nights in the end.
Wow.
Did I? So. No, I did 3 nights. No, I did 4 nights because I had to move after. I did my last night I shouldn't have been there for my last night. Put it that way. I had a meeting with a website guy, and I blew the meeting out basically. And then I had to. So I'd done 3. There's a 3-night rule where you've got to move swims. So I'd caught. I think I'd had 5 fish by my 3rd night, and I had to move. And there's a swim just to the side of it. So. I moved, but I popped my float up to the zone I was fishing, and while there was still no one in the swim, nipped round to the swim and saw where the float was. I just fished off the side of it, and my mate Tone popped in the swim, and he gave me a bit of room. You know what I mean? He sort of fished them out left.
Good friend.
He's a good bloke, mate. It's amazing what plying him with coffees and
is that what it was?
And takeaways does.
Yeah.
But so went into my. The 4th night with and the weather spun. The weather come mega. Like I'd already had a mega trip anyway, catching some big uns, But the weather spun and it was hacking down the lake into. I had to spin my body round, like sort of almost facing away from the lake, just side on, and got the rods out sweet. Woke up, got a bite in the night. It was the leather again, which I'd caught last year.
Yeah, right.
Which was like sacrilege really to repeat, double up on that when there's like that'd make anyone's year, like that fish was. But so caught that, slipped her back, got my mate Tone up, and we both sorted her out. Big old girl, So we both sorted her out, and she was all good, and we put her back. And
that was a mega result. I was here at work.
Yeah,
because I'd spoken to Jay about Carthagena, and he said you'd fished up there the previous year, and it seemed like every week he's caught some more. Caught some more. It was just building all the time. Yeah,
it was mad. It's a mad little spell of fishing, which I'll probably never replicate. But,
so did you have? Well, we better mention the catch of Tango as well, because you ended up catching that one. Twice.
Yeah. I caught that one. That was the next capture. But then I went on to, I carried on. I did several other trips and carried on catching. Same sort of zones. Zones were moving.
I've actually got a picture of it there.
But
that was Tango.
That's Tango,
that's the big common. Yeah.
That's. Did you say as well, Luke, that the fish were you thought the fish were starting to sort of migrate down the lake?
The shows I was seeing. So when I had to move to the swim to the right, that was a blessing, because I wouldn't have moved after being on that run. They were moving. The shows were going right. All the bites were on my right hand rod. They were starting to go on my right hand rod. And that next morning, the one show I see in the morning was bang out in front of the swim to the right. So that was where I caught the next 2 fish from. But then the week after that, the shows were right again. In front of another swim, so it felt to me like they were harvesting little areas, and they were just moving gradually along that bank.
But you were keeping in touch with them.
Yeah, I was seeing them show after dark, and I was moving after dark. That's when they would come active. I wasn't.
You're thinking, oh, those crafty devils, they're moving a little bit.
Yeah, they were just shifting over, But I was quite in tune with what was going on, and
it was
it was all good.
And have we got any video footage of Tango, Tobe?
Yeah, I have actually. Give me 2 secs.
Yeah, but we got some footage of you with it on the bank and stuff as well, which it'd be good to put on the screen.
There it is.
Were you kind of, was that one at the back of your mind as well?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was always the mirrors for me.
Here we go. We're looking at some footage now of Luke with Tango, and all the other guys look so.
Oh yeah, like the video.
They're
probably,
enthusiastic and
it's been on Elliot's thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's just iPhone. That's one of the lads, Scott, my mate.
Tobe, don't you think he looks a bit carpy?
It's that old DPA jacket, isn't it?
I say it when you leave, Luke. I'm like, I wish I had hair like that.
Yeah, you better wish, Tobe.
I've got me to wish hard, mate.
You do.
Look at that brutal. That doesn't do it justice. Actually, I had a real chop on the lake. It was really hacking down there.
It looks lovely. We've got sound as well. You can hear Gerry's excitement.
Oh, he was
£53, wasn't it?
He was, but no one expected it to be a 50 pounder. Like it was an upper 40. You know, that's what we all expected it to be. Looks massive there. If you see
it's definitely massive.
But yeah, I mean, he was, for him, like he holds that lake. Though I mean, he lives on.
I bet he does. Yeah,
sort of on the complex in the lock house. But he's done those lakes so right over the years. You know what I mean? He's run them well, and they've sort of come to fruition. You
need an old school kind of angler, don't you, that knows
perhaps
from his own experience.
Yeah, the way he shuts the lakes when they spawn, and then he allows the lads to do a draw and then pre-bait the swim that you've drawn for several weeks, things like that. You don't see a lot of that nowadays in fishing, do you? You know, so credit to him and the lads. Really, it's a mega well run little thing over there,
especially with old carp as well. You know, you've got to give them some space.
Absolutely.
At times.
It's massive. Like some of the lakes, I fish a couple of days only waters, or have done in the past, and those lakes the fishing them have really gone through the roof, and it's completely down to them having that 12 hours off, or however many it is overnight, of no pressure. You know,
that's
really
interesting.
That really helps them, I'm sure.
Yeah,
being able to eat without fear of getting hooked.
Think of a few waters like that, Sutton on Home, Harrow in the day.
Yeah,
those
lakes fish got big for absolutely down to that one reason.
You don't think that's a coincidence?
No, for sure. And the longevity of like their lives, they grow old and big, easier than if they'd have been fished for around the clock. Definitely.
And having a close season as well.
That's what I'm getting at, really, that whole close season bit on there. That does them loads of good. They don't spawn and then get immediately hooked when they're just desperate to pack on a bit more weight like they would elsewhere.
Yeah, you wonder what that does to them. I mean, again, old fish, they get hooked immediately after spawning. They have to go through the whole.
Yeah, it's not good, is it?
It's not good.
We've all been guilty of fishing from.
Of course we have. I mean, if we're allowed on the lake, I mean,
but I mean, their mouths are testament, mate. There's not many lakes where pretty much the majority of the stock have got pristine mouths, especially at that age of them carp. They're like pond fish. Some of them fish. That's a real big thing to me. Fishing for carp with clean mouths is it's not every day you can do it, or everywhere you can do it.
I think we try and promote fish care a lot as well on here as well, and just being sensible, with retaining fish and stuff like that as well. I mean, sucking fish up or leaving the fish in a retainer all night, and then bringing them in and out of the water all the time.
Oh, some of the stuff you see by even like experienced lads and that, it just makes me shiver, sometimes. But like to think I'm experienced and
sensible enough.
Sensible, yeah.
Because it's not just new anglers.
I'd never dream of sacking fish in summertime in weedy lakes or whatever, but giving them a little bit of time in the net is always good, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, our rule is brilliant, Luke. I mean, it gets you into a good routine as well. You hook the fish, land the fish. I use a 50-inch net, so I use a big net with a deep mesh, stake it into the ground, get everything sorted out, pull it out of the water, weigh it, photograph and put it back.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier as well than having to pull it up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. It's got that rule on there. There's no retaining fish. It's not always easy when it's middle of the night, but you muddle by, and like the lads are all no one minds being woken up in the night to help you out. I mean, I've slipped several fish back over there without doing shots because they're no disrespect, but they're, you know, it's a low 20 common or whatever, and in its own right, it's a wonderful fish. But you know, sometimes it's easier to
it's like,
just slip them. But
unnecessary stress.
Well,
isn't
yeah,
it?
I think so. Yeah, you just weigh it up, don't you?
So that's stocking then. That is just the fish that are in the lake now. That's the original stocking. There are no other.
No, he's stocked it several times over the years.
Right.
I caught one this year, like Bill black scaly Sutton fish. You know, I don't know how many stockings he's done. He's done a few. He's just trickled them in as they've needed to be. You know.
That's good fish management.
Oh, it's it's mega. It's done right. It's done how I like to think I would do it the same if I was in that position. I think.
I think so.
It'd be, you know. But yeah, he's definitely done it well.
So that's sort of just about caps up Carthagena. So that was. Are you planning on fishing there again?
Don't know. I've still got my ticket.
I bet the
now,
members are thinking, do you know what, Luke? Can you go and fish somewhere else?
I don't know. No, they're a good bunch of lads, mate. They're all right.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah, no, I've just flitted about just lately, just on a little lake near me. But I mean, I still might go back. But there's a few I haven't caught. But I
was interested because you've been talking about. Sorry, so.
No, I was going to say you can't always catch them all, can you? You know,
No.
sometimes you've got to move on and you know.
So leaving it, maybe give it some thought and see what comes around next year. I suppose,
that's it.
Or the end of this year.
Yeah.
You were talking about that water that you've been fishing, small lake that you're fishing. I was interested. You've been putting bait in there, and you know, a reasonable amount of bait as well, and then going back there a few days and having a few results.
Yeah,
as a result of that.
I mean, the weather we've had's been mega, isn't it? And it's a very unpressured lake. It's like a small, quiet syndicate near my house, and I can go over there and bait. I was working there this week, right in the village, and I had a bag of bait. I never meant to bait it, but I had a 5 key bag of bait, and I didn't have a catapult, so I was throwing my bait in, and all the next day, all my body's like aching on my back, my arms, and throwing this bait as far as I could. But I've been baiting it and catching like over loads of bait, you know, for the time of year.
Again, is that another tactic that, because I mean, we're all taught, aren't we, nowadays, you know, it's like, you know, don't you overbait the swim, and, you know, they can't digest it at this time of the year.
There's a time and a place, isn't there?
Right. What's the time and the place for you?
I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? You just work it out as you go. But I mean, these are quite young fish. I know where they're going to be, so it's not like I'm baiting miles off them, and there's not loads of people putting loads of bait in. The weather's warm, isn't it? It's when everyone's doing it. They can be a bit more picky, can't they?
When did you start introducing bait?
From the get-go, through getting a ticket. But I've only fished it a handful of times. But whenever I fished, there's not enough bait goes in the lake, full stop.
You said that.
But every time I go over, I take bait with me. Even if it's just a walk, I'll always bait.
And you think those baiting kind of trips before you actually fish, that they're making the difference?
Key, without doubt.
Right.
Yeah, without doubt. Without doubt. It's everything over there, especially. You prime an area, and you're definitely getting one that next trip.
Is it a particularly big stock?
30 fish, something like that.
Oh,
but it's only a small lake,
right.
So relatively, I mean, it's only a few acres, so yeah. But there's certain areas that I know they're going to be in, and it's but baiting over there is key. It can be everywhere, can't it? But done right. I mean, if everyone's baiting, then baiting isn't always the way to go. But
and you said as well, you put about 5k in?
Yeah, I've been putting 5 key bags in. Yeah.
Boilies?
Yeah, boilie. All
right.
straight boilie, yeah.
Yeah. And you think, and then you give it a few days until
so
they've been on that bait for a while.
Even like a night and a day would be enough. Like maybe not that amount, maybe a kilo or two, but the birds are going to get some, so you've got to factor in that. It's shallow, it's only 6-7 foot, that sort of thing.
Oh, that sounds ideal, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they'll get some of that.
Are you baiting while you're actually fishing?
Yeah, I'm fishing over quite a bit, fishing over a kilo or
so
half
you put
a
the
kilo.
bait. Oh, right, okay.
So I'm not just going down and flicking singles in because I think they've eaten that bait. By the time I'm there, I genuinely think there's no bait there.
So that sort of
it's worked so
dispels.
far. It's worked so far, but it's easy. Hindsight's easy, isn't it? Like if I'd been struggling, might be different. But
So would you crumb it up as well, or use bigger baits or smaller baits?
I've been using 12s and 16s. But if the birds have just started becoming an issue, I would crumb it up just so it's there for longer during the day, the daylight hours. If they're diving on it all day, they soon get them home baits, won't they? It's,
They stay on that crumb for ages, don't they?
God, carp do. I mean, in fact, I've got some good footage of the big one in there feeding on crumb. Only like January, like down at my feet, I'm in a tree and it's feeding on. And there was 3. You can see 3 bits. You can see 3 bits of crumb or like broken bait, but it was feeding down there for 20 seconds on just like sort of under half a bait's worth of crumb. Do you know what I'm saying? So you imagine kilos and kilos of it. They keep them going for ages.
I remember a few years back, we were feeding crumb into a snaggy area of the lake, and we were watching a couple of carp in there, and they would stay on that for hours on that bait.
Save.
Yeah, on Save, yeah, grassy corner.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that and thinking, right, we need to start. Actually, I'll give Stu credit for that a little bit. Stu started to use some crumb.
Yeah.
And I remember one specific trip. I'd found a really, really nice spot at long range.
Yeah.
And I'd baited it at the previous night with a lot of crumb. Fished that night, didn't get a bite, but had to go to work the next day. I lived like 80. I was working 80 miles away from the lake.
Fair play,
I came back the next that evening. It was just getting dark. And I thought, well, my friend, he's a day angler. I know he was fishing rounds in the cottage bay, and I was going to go pop round and see him because I thought, well, it's too dark now. And that cast was a long way out, and it's a really small, probably the size of this table.
Yeah.
And I looked at the sky and I thought, do you know what? If I leg it round now quickly, I might just get one rod out in the water in time.
Yeah.
Got round there, first rod straight out, straight onto the spot. Happy with that. You know how it is. You think, well, let's just chance it and put the second rod out. So
on top of it?
Yeah, on top of it.
Oh,
That's
right.
what I do. Yeah,
Tramming them up.
Yeah, just cast them on top of each other.
How far?
130.
Right. Okay. Tricky casting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. For the first one to go out there, that's why I almost thought, do you know, I'm going to have a cup of tea with her.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, especially if you see the way I fish at times. You know, anything could happen. But I casted the next one out, went out, bang on top of the other rod as well. And it was so close, I got Stu to come round and we were stood there.
Weren't sure which side?
Yeah, that's what we were doing. We had the torch on the line and we were looking at the line, but I put no bait out. But the previous night, I put all that crumb out there. So I just thought it was a bonus for anyone else. As we were actually looking at the lines where the rods went up in my head,
No.
they must have been on the crumb. Must have been on the
without doubt,
crumb. Like
without
all
doubt.
that time.
Yeah, without doubt.
Either that or they've just suddenly...
No.
It's not... But I fished the whole previous night. Didn't get a bite. So the next year, you think...
Yeah, crumb's great for baiting with. It
Yeah.
keeps them coming back, doesn't it? And, you know, they can clean up a kilo or two of whole bait in no time.
No
can't they?
time. It's
And-
too easy
and so
for
can
'em.
birds as well, you know.
Yeah. So you've been having some nice results through the winter on this local lake.
It's lovely. Just drop in and out. It's
Yeah.
pleasant bit of fishing. It's very quiet, and I've sort of savoured it in a way for the colder months. Just when they're better weights and better nick, a few less lads on the bank.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
It's quiet anyway, but
So it worked out well with Carthagena as well, didn't it?
yeah, no, it's ideal.
Of the opportunity to... Do you like staying on lakes for very long, given the choice? Would you rather just try and fish around a little bit?
I don't generally. I've fished about this year, but only just because I've not flitted from one to another back to the other. I've just done them in blocks. But I tend to. I never do so well just dropping on and off. I never start very quickly. I always sort of have to build into things and build on what I see. And every trip you're building, aren't you? Whether it's baiting or just what you see, you build up a picture and you go from there. But I tend to sort of stay on a lake until I've caught what I want from that lake, or that really, generally speaking.
It could turn into a bit of a tedious affair, can't it?
Can do, yeah.
You know, if you're not... Do you have a lot of tickets lined up, or is it
No,
very
I'm
much...
terrible for it.
Right.
I'm terrible for it. No, I wish I did.
You need to tell me some places to fish in Essex because
You need to tell me something your way.
well, yeah, maybe. No, there's a lot of water around here, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, I don't tend to do much around Essex. I've done a bit in the Lea Valley, but Cambridge, I like Cambridge.
Why not so much in Essex?
Just some of the fish. I've done a bit, but you exhaust some of the lakes near you, don't you? And
Right.
and move on. And I quite like going further afield. I quite like the adventure it brings of even be it an hour down the road. You pack the van and you're there for that amount of time. There's no, if work rings or you get a job come in, if you're local to home, there's that option of maybe going and doing it. But when the further away you are, that's it. You sort of shut off from reality, I suppose. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You sort of shut off and.
It's like going on a holiday somewhere a bit different.
Yeah, it's just you shut off from reality, I suppose, isn't it? You're in this little bubble of you and the lake, and it's an escape, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, there's a lot of water. Kind of so many lakes around here. They tend to be irrigation lakes more, don't they?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I have to admit, I prefer gravel pits.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Maybe a bigger gravel pit as well, but it would be nice around here to find somewhere. There's enough lakes, Luke, but it's just I haven't really seen one yet that I really sort of fancy fishing.
Yeah.
We'll
we'll have a chat about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was talking to Rob Willingham the other day actually about St Ives Lagoon. I didn't realise you lot were all like part of a, like a friendship group.
Part of a cult or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're all really pretty close. Have been for years.
Yeah. So would one of you come up with an idea about where to fish, or because I always thought you were quite a solitary guy that just went off and done his own thing?
No, we got a group of mates, but we tend to never fish the same lakes. But this particular, so we all fished. Me, Joe, and Rob all fished, or all got tickets at the same time for St Ives Lagoon when the fat lady was still alive. And we all got tickets at the same time. I mean, Joe was fishing Elstow, and I think we all were fishing elsewhere, but we ended up fishing it all together, which we don't usually tend to do. But we only fished it a few times, and
it was really bad timing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was shit timing.
Yeah, like the worst.
Yeah, couldn't be worse. Yeah, no, she died within a month of getting a ticket. I did 3 or 4 trips.
Whose idea was it to ever go on there? Was that a big jump up for you guys?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had never fished a lake that far away from. It was only an hour and a half away from home. But what we dropped in on a mate. My mate Sean was fishing up there, and we'd fished a weekend somewhere. Chad Pool, if I remember rightly, like real little pool with a big one in.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where's that?
That's in
your way.
That's my way.
Yeah,
Stow on the Wold.
Yeah. So we dropped in on Cambridge on the way back.
Black Spot, wasn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd fished there the weekend, or yeah.
Sorry, did you catch anything out there?
No. I did a 2 or 3 night blank.
Right.
I was up in the Duffers. Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's my excuse.
Yeah.
But no, it's tiny. It's like tiniest little lake.
Bit different to St Ives Lagoon.
Very different. Yeah. But we had a nice time. It was good. But no, I'll tell a lie. I had that black. Was it black?
Black Spot.
No.
Was it Black Eye? Black Eye.
That's it.
Yeah.
We found that every day. I spent most of the weekend sat bang opposite me, but with its like back out of the water. It was weird. Like its back was out of the water for that long, but its back had gone all like dry and
got a suntan,
crusty. Yeah. It was. I think it had been caught, and its tail had been broken a little while before our trip. And hence why it was acting. So you could almost go up there over and touch it. It was acting really odd.
Did it die not long after that?
Yeah, probably did. I don't know.
Right.
No, I think it got caught a few times afterwards. But I remember there being in the shots before our trip, its last capture, which was only a week or 2 before. It had a broken tail. One of its tail lobes was broken, so it was probably sulking, and it weren't right anyway. Definitely weren't acting right. You could have gone around and poked it with a landing net pole, and it.
That's not right.
No.
Did you all go out there together and fish?
Yeah,
three people on there. That's
no. It was 4 of us.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's 4 of us.
It's a lot of lines on there.
Yeah. It was. someone's birthday or something. We had it booked exclusively, you know.
Right.
Did a couple of nights. And then anyway, so we dropped in on my mate Sean on the way home. He was fishing on there and it was just, the buzz was amazing. Anyway, we found out who we had to ring to get tickets and rung and made the necessary call and whatnot. And had a ticket for that next coming year.
And you could just ring up and get a ticket quite easily.
Pretty
on
much, yeah. There was always a ticket to be had. Old Gordon, he,
I think a lot of people were, after a ticket on there.
Yes and no. I think there was quite a high turnaround maybe of anglers.
What, because they kept catching it or because they realised how hard the lake was?
A bit of both. It was a tricky lake, definitely. Yeah. It did a few captures. It made up probably a percentage of the...
Rob was saying that.
Of the captures in the lake. There's probably only a handful of 15 fish, 12 fish, something like that. It was tricky. I mean, in the time, the nights I did on there, nothing got caught while I was there. And maybe only 2 commons and the lady got caught in the period I had the ticket. So that'll tell you.
So the lady was the most caught fish on the lake?
I'd have said so. Yeah, that, and there was another big one called the pig.
Yeah. Or
the black pig. But so that one died. And
so what was it about that lake when you turned up there?
It was electric, mate. I say I've never had it since. I probably have, but it really, I remember it vividly. You'd walk in through that gate and your hairs would stand up, just like clanging that gate open and shut and getting through. And
is it very private then?
No, I wouldn't say very private. There's a gate, but there's fields flank it one side, and there's a bit of a bus lane the other end. But it was just something about fishing for a fish of that size and real prestigious sort of fish, mega beautiful carp in its own right. Big fat grey on top with like a creamy sort of underbelly.
Oh yeah,
yeah, but real big one, upper 50 or whatever it was.
Did it do 60?
I think it might have done once. Might have done. Definitely did like 58s, 59s. It did £60.
Very big fish.
But I mean, it was the sort of fish that in the spring it was a bit more predictable, but the rest of the year, summer, autumn and that, you could be the last one turning up on a Friday night and catch it. It was that sort of fish, it would get caught from anywhere. You were definitely in with a shout of it,
So it's unpredictability was actually more of
quite nice in a way. If you had lads on there plotted up all week in the main swims that you knew was going to do it, it'd obviously be a bit disheartening getting there on a Friday and going in a corner somewhere. But
a lot of you fishing.
We never got to that stage really. It died in the May or whatever, maybe early June. Around spawning sort of time. I remember being on there when they started spawning, and we packed up and went over the road, did a night on the shallow. I don't even know if we fished the shallow. I think we just went over there and looked, me and Rob. And then I ended up rejoining and fishing the shallow a year or two later.
Right. But were there a lot of people fishing on the lagoon?
Yeah.
So
it was a real sought after fish. Yeah. People would travel. There's a lot of northerners, few from around Manchester way and that sort of thing, I think.
Yeah.
But they came from all over to fish for that fish.
Rob sold that really well to me the other day, actually. I was talking to him about it and he just, did you catch anything out there, Rob? Well, I knew that you guys didn't because you, like you say, you weren't on there long enough. But he said, no, but I saw it once. Yeah. And it's just his story about us just seeing it. I know. Between the islands and seeing it.
I mean, I remember watching it come in over me once. I saw it from about sort of 50, 80 yards away. I saw it bow wave in right over my rod, which I had just down sort of 20 yards out, but off to an angle down a tree line. And it swam right over my rig down. I lost sort of sight of it. So I've scurried down this tree line, trying to fight my way through to get a glimpse of the water where it might have gone. Couldn't see it. Thought I'd lost view of it. Walked back to my swim only to see it bow waving back over where my rod was placed. And then I followed it with my eyes for like another 100 or 150 yards out between these islands. That was it, gone. That was as near as I ever got to it, I think. But that in itself was exciting,
just to see it, yeah. Great big pig in the water. Yeah. I mean, I'd never one caught the pig, but that one was... so you didn't really sort of build up... You didn't have enough time on there to sort of have any...
It was very busy as well. The key swims you needed to be in that time. There was a lot of fish around a couple of weed beds in... What I remember was the lawns, Dave's and the lawns round to Fatty's Point. The weed was right up there, and fish were just living there. The bream were spawning there. They'd spawned there, and the carp were resident there, and they I didn't feel like they were moving far in that period.
Right.
But it never got to that bit where they might have shifted around the lake. And like I say, it was very busy. There was lads on there all week, camped out in them swims, rotering them really. But
God, Rob was nearly in tears, I think, when he heard, I think Spooner was, he came into work one day and Spooner said to him, have you heard the news? And he goes, what news? He said, the fat lady. And he went, what about the fat lady? It's dead.
He did all right though. Rob shot straight up the snake. I remember it.
Snake pit.
Yeah, he shot straight up there that same trip. I think he had a week off work. And we had a look round. That's it. We did. We had a walk round Shallow in the afternoon. Then we bolted back to Colchester. He went straight to the snake pit. And on his second night caught snake pit common. So
yeah,
bittersweet week for him.
Yeah, that's right. You ever fancy snake pit? Have you fished that much?
No, it's one the common... Dippy got long gone by the time I was back into my fishing. I was a teenager when that was still about. I'd have done anything to have fished for or caught that one. It was a mega old mirror, wasn't it? But the common was about, like the not the original snake pit common, obviously, but the next one. But I just never really fancied it. It wasn't.
It keeps coming back, that lake, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You've had 3 generations now of like specific really big carp in that lake.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I drive past it every day. I literally drive past it every day to go to work. My yard's just up the road.
Is it?
And there's a nice one in there now, a linear, like an upper 30 linear, maybe even £40. But I don't know. No, it's just not done it for me. Not enough. Like there's too many other nice carp about that I put in front of that.
Do you think it's a hard place to fish? I mean, back in the day, there was nothing in there anyway.
There was nothing in there. There was a lot more snags. I think when Damo had the common, it was a different animal altogether. Then I think
totally different lake.
Yeah, there was loads more snags, and I think the bank was a lot more impenetrable. Maybe there's probably more swims on there now than there was then.
Because what about, I mean, when Dippy was around in there, they were fishing over to those snags, weren't they then?
Yeah,
so did they remove the snags?
No, some of them are still there in the corner. But yeah, that was a friendly one, Dippy. That was mega mirror, that.
Yeah.
That was classic old looking.
Completely different to the previous common that was in there.
Oh, well, it wasn't an original from that had been moved about. It hadn't, but yeah, completely different.
Do you know much about Dippy then?
Well, I knew it'd come from some lakes out Ipswich way and then into the river. It'd been moved about several times, and I knew that. They called it Dippy the Wandering Mirror, didn't they?
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah, that was dead by the time I sort of got back into my fishing from being a teenager. But yeah, that was... I remember going down and seeing a couple of mates fishing for that one. But all my mates that fished for it caught it. Yeah, I think.
Exciting stuff, though. They're my favourite stories. We said off a film actually about Zen's story in Foxball.
Yeah.
And with respect to Rob Mailing, because I love Rob Mailing's books, I absolutely love them. But Zen's story in there, this chapter just stands out.
Yeah, that was a great chapter. He's a good writer, Zen.
Yeah,
he's quite a funny guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rob went off to Snake Pit. So where did you go? So just getting back to St Ives actually. So we are going to bring this onto like Shallows Lake.
Yeah.
So, but you left it a few years before you went back there.
I can't remember where I went in between times. I'm terrible. Maybe I did join it the year after.
Right.
Might have been the year after, or might have been the year after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the big one in there, Colin, I mean, was that getting a lot of publicity?
No. That was a really quiet lake back then. There would be a very small handful of regulars that would fish it, and then you'd get St Ives Lagoon anglers would go over there if the lady got caught. If that got caught during their session, rather than pack up and go home, they'd shoot over the road or onto one of the other lakes.
Right.
And that would put the regulars' noses out of joint a bit when there's an influx of
I bet
new anglers come over for the weekend or whatever. But that was always right in the shadow of the lagoon, but had a mega stock of fish really in its own right.
It kind of sounds better.
Yeah, I would be fishing then. Going back in hindsight, I'd have been fishing there rather than the lagoon. Bit
Really?
quieter banks. Yeah, I think so. Don't
Yeah.
quote me on that, but yeah, the idea of quieter banks now is much more appealing than perhaps it was then.
But the lagoon itself was an entirely different lake in size. So Shallows Lake, how big is that?
15 acres, something like that.
Yeah. Shallow.
Yeah, very shallow. Funny enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Shallow, weedy.
Now, how shallow is it?
So the deeper areas, there's the deep corners about 10 foot maybe. But the rest of the lake, between 5 and 8 foot, I would say, is with a lot of that is Canadian, comes right up to the surface and it does get choked up. It's very sort of raw, unkempt sort of lake, lots of deadwood and snags and no cut out swims. Well, they cut out swims, but they're not all sleepers in the front of them and barked or anything like that by any means. It's a bit of a throwback, I suppose, for a syndicate lake.
Yeah. And quite typical of those lakes around there as well. They're all a little bit like that, aren't they? Even though they're quite well fished.
Yeah, they are. Especially that complex. I love it. It's
how have they maintained that? How have they managed to just keep it, that old sort of rustic?
Just anglers walking the banks, I suppose. It's just that little worn bit down the middle of the.
But nowadays, especially on waters, you'd expect to start seeing some railway sleepers.
No, it's a conscious decision, isn't it, to not.
Good management.
I suppose. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's been managed well. I mean, it's consciously. Oh, don't get me wrong. There is sleepers in the front of some of them, but they're not your typical swims in this day and age. Like some of them, you have to get out in the pond to cast because there's overhanging trees over your head, and or if you get up there and cut a branch down or whatever. But it's there is that element of wildness to them, all of those lakes, and not just that complex, that area, full stop. Something nice about it.
Lots of water. So Shallows as well. What was the stock?
60, 80 fish.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. 60 or 70, I'd have put it.
Well, I know you caught a lot of fish out of there. I know that you're not a vragger or anything, but I mean, what did you actually catch out of there?
Again,
numbers wise?
I think I had around 40 fish or 40 captures. Maybe.
Did you repeat many?
Yeah, a few, maybe 5 or 6. So that make up 10 captures straight away.
Right.
But so I did a couple of years on there with maybe a year or two in between.
Colin was always the target.
It turned out, I sort of went on there because of that.
Yeah.
But there are some equally nice fish in there. Maybe not. That was always the biggest. It still is, I think. But there were some other mega ones. One called Laney's, which was a real nice one, which I caught sort of early.
I've actually got a picture of that one.
Early on-ish. Yeah, that's him.
Nice.
Yeah, mate, that's like that's got to be £50 now. Got getting there. I think it done 49. 12 last year, quite rare.
What's the current stock in there now then, Luke?
It's got to be around the same. It's lost a few, but I think he slips the odd few in at a time. He's got some stock ponds, but even the stock ponds are wild little, impenetrable banked little old gravel pits. They're mega,
Yeah. They've got a similar appearance to them, haven't they? There must have been a big stocking.
There was.
Stocking around
I know Gordon put them in. Sort of going back quite a long time now. I know he worked for the EA and different things, so I think he had access to some fish from other lakes or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, but they're quite a unique strain. Colin was the king, if you like. He was the big one.
Where did the name come from? Do you know?
Something to do with colon. It had its arse was hanging out or something. So I think they called it Colon.
Right.
And then to make it sound a bit nicer, it changed it to Colin. Something like that.
Carp anglers can be so creative.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. Were you following, because Dave Lane and, those guys and obviously Terry caught out the lagoon, and both those guys have been fishing there. Were you following that, other guys' kind of progress on the Shallows Lake? And
yeah, I don't know if they fished the shallow or not. I think
Dave did, didn't he?
Yeah,
Dave
he might have done, but he did. He did in
caught Colin.
in latter years. Yes, but Laney's got its name, I believe he caught that out of one of the other smaller stock-type lakes at maybe 20-odd pound and maybe moved it across. I think that's where it got its name from, going back quite a few years. But then in latter years, actually in between my first and second years on the shallow, I think he fished it in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah.
So I never fished it. I was never fishing there at the same time, but yeah, he got amongst them. And
was it the same sort of approach on there? The old choddies again? And,
I don't know. Yeah, it was for me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They just worked really well. I was just, because there wasn't many real clean areas. I was just fishing for sort of, as long as I was getting a swing. If I was fishing over low Canadian, then that was great. That would do. I was spomming bait out there and flicking little chods on the line over the top but not getting a particularly clean drop on. No, not always like a donk. As long as I was feeling it swing through the water and I felt it land, that was game on for the old chods. That was good. And
again, it sounds like you're chucking them like anywhere, but I mean there were specific clean areas on there. Did you say like the middle of the lake, and there seemed to be a kind of a recreational area in the middle?
There was a good area where the fish, like a no man's land, sort of Bermuda Triangle sort of area where they spent a lot of time. Not all the time by any means, but if you could get out to around that area and be fishing where the weed was lower, or silty areas where they dug later on in the year and dug it out and pushed the weed back and stuff. If you could get in those zones, they were good.
You're going in there with bait and stuff? A lot
I was using quite a lot of bait as the season went on.
Yeah.
From spring into summer after it spawned, really. I think being presented over there was like probably the hardest thing because it was shallow, and if you were fishing long with big leads, you weren't always getting like drops. You'd think you were fishing, but I'm sure a lot of the time
that could be the problem with heavier leads as well, can't it? That you're getting a false
absolutely dropping through a bit of weed, and especially with mono at range and that. It's a lot of the time if you go out there in a boat and saw what you was fishing over. In fact, I did with the chod rigs. Like I was fishing, I went out and I remember getting an eel caught, snagged up in weed. We went out there and it turned out to be an eel. Like this eel was massive, but my mate, I nearly jumped out the boat.
Got a picture of it?
Oh no, I nearly jumped out the boat when my mate put this eel in. It was like as long as my leg, and like
How big was that? Do you think?
7, 8, 9 pounds.
Oh my god,
massive! Like
it's a proper snake.
Massive thing. Yes, bigger than a snake. It was. Yeah, but my mate, savage. But anyway, so we were out in this boat and we was over the zone where I'd caught it from, and it was just like. You'd never have cast there in a million years.
Really?
Yeah. But then again, it was all like that out there. So if you weren't, that was where they were, and it was as near. But you could see why you wouldn't want to be using conventional sort of lead clips or even helicopter leads. Really, it had to be like a chod up, back up the line, and you just laying it down on the denser bits of lower line stuff. I think.
You think sometimes we can see too much and kind of read too much into
boat work. I suppose you can.
I
expect people. I've not done a great deal of dropping from boats and that, but you're always looking to put it on the real clean bits. But I like to fish in the dirtier bits.
Simon Scott's advice, fishing spots was at the end of his podcast. What's your secret edge? And his secret edge was if everyone's fishing at 20 wraps, fish it 19 wraps, and fishing the dirtier stuff. Try and get it off of
off the real blatant bits. Because I've watched fish come in and pick around the edge of a round crater that they've dug out and fed off without doubt. I mean, they're not always eating off them gravel spots, are they?
Did you notice a difference though when you started catching fish out of there, that the areas that you were putting bait in and stuff started to change?
Yeah, eventually they were sort of drying up where they dug them out and they'll become too blatant and clean. Where obviously the fish are swimming over dirtier stuff and weed, and all of a sudden they've come to a bright, round, glowing. It becomes a bit obvious, doesn't it? I had to I changed my rig over when I caught Colin to a bottom bait for that reason.
Did you say that was the first time you used a bottom bait on?
Yeah, first night. Mental, isn't it? But I'd caught a lot of fish on the chods and a few on hinges, but on pop-ups, I'd caught loads and not that one.
Right.
So, do you know what I mean? It sort of made sense that maybe I needed to, especially if I was going to be fishing them cleaner bits, to be fishing with a bottom bait.
Yeah, you never know. You're never going to know if that's a coincidence or not, but it's interesting,
There's got
isn't
to be
it?
something in it.
Yeah.
Especially for that spot at that time. I was missing out on the odd bite, I think. They were feeding over me and I wasn't getting bites on pop-ups.
Were you seeing that fish? Did it mix with the other fish? I mean, was it part of the show?
I expect it must have been, but I mean, it got caught amongst other fish, but I never saw it. I never saw it at all. I saw a couple of big fish show out in the pond. Could well have been it, but you wouldn't stay. I never saw it swimming. I was never up a tree and saw it, even though there's an out of bounds I used to get in a lot, which is mad, isn't it?
You spent a lot of hours, I'd imagine, up trees.
Yeah.
Never saw it.
Yeah. No, it's
because there's a big out of bounds area there as well.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's an out of bounds, but you can go round and wade across an island, wade across a channel and get up onto an island and up a tree, and look down on this little viewing pool, really, which is sort of you can't fish there, but you can go around and look. And I never saw it in there. You see all the rest of them. One would swim under, and you say, "Oh, that's so and so," and but no, I never saw that.
Did you sort of take note of that as well, that this fish might not?
Yes and no, but I know it's got form for it getting caught around that zone, so it didn't put me off fishing them swims by it.
What a good thing in a way that you never saw it necessarily in the out of bounds as well. I mean, so it's more likely to be out
there where you
in open water where you can catch it.
Yeah, it's one way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I never sort of dissect all that sort of stuff too much, because the game changes, doesn't it? Early morning in the summer and that bite time, those fish aren't there anyway. Like they're elsewhere out in the pond where you're fishing, I suppose. But
there was a pattern. We're seeing the fish starting to turn up into the shallows during daylight hours.
Yeah, in the spring especially, before the weed got up, they'd love it around there. It's classic carpy area, big lily pads, shallow, snaggy.
Looks amazing.
Yeah, doesn't it just? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like carp heaven around there. Yeah.
I guess as well, it's something to learn for everyone as well. That's typically what carp do anyway. I mean, it might not necessarily be an out of bounds area.
Yeah, that's textbook stuff where carp want to go, isn't it?
Snacks or anything during the day, and
especially if it's like pressure free. Like they were around there having a whale of a time. They'd eat boilies on the drop round there, I'm sure.
So how are you clocking up so many bites? Weren't other people putting bait out and fishing?
Yeah, they were.
Way?
I'm not saying no one else caught. There was other fish getting caught.
Yeah.
I was presented well. I think I don't think many people were using them little chods and that.
But you assume that most people assume that they're always presented well, or don't give that enough thought, do they?
Yeah, maybe. I was getting in some good zones. I was baiting.
Longer sessions.
Yeah, I was doing 2 and 3 nights.
Yeah.
Other times I'd travel down there for a night. Travel down in the lead up to when I caught it. I was getting amongst them, and I felt really close. And I was sort of, I was moving mountains to get down there. I was baiting up midweek, driving down there hour and a half each way to bait up and that. Especially when you felt really close. You go that extra mile, don't you? I suppose it's enough to. I'm sure that helped.
But all the time you're racking up all these bites and thinking, but the one I really want to catch.
In the end, it got to I think I'd caught pretty much all the other bigger. I definitely caught all the other bigger known named ones at least once. No, most of them twice. And it was only a couple that I'd never caught in my second stint. And then I ended up. There was one called Sheffield Linear. I caught that. And then it was literally only Colin to go for, and
I think you ever hooked it and lost it, or
yeah, maybe, yeah, quite actually, definitely, quite possibly, yeah, on 2 occasions. One, my first bite, where I'd got down. It was still early May, and I'd got down and I was fishing sort of around the back, like near the out of bounds in one of the swims that right by it, and I remember I was getting the rods out and it was raining. In the end, by the time I'd got 2 rods out just before dark, I was soaked to the skin and freezing cold. So I took all my clothes off, fishing. They were really active this afternoon. It was real low pressure and storm, and they'd just gone it was fizzing everywhere, and they were really on it. And so I remember my clothes were so wet, like I'd been dipped in the lake and jumped back out. So I took all my clothes off, got in the bag. I was freezing cold, got off to sleep, got a bite in the night, and it got snagged. Beat me up, actually. It felt like a big fish from the word go. It got snagged on a dead bit of wood that was sort of down my margin. And in the end, it was like a stalemate. It was just on that, and I couldn't. But on my torchlight, I could see it was like wallowing on its side. And as it was hitting the water, it was like that it makes me shiver now, but of a real big fish, big flank, that hollow sort of thudding noise on the water's surface as it was sort of wallowing about. And there was every chance that was it. It's definitely a big carp, and that ended up that ditched the hook and put me in the branch.
But I guess at the time, because it was your first bite as well, you probably didn't reflect.
No,
much
it's just
on
hindsight. It's just you just get on, don't you, and carry on. But
what was the time when you were you had to take the dogs down to the lake? Was that?
Yeah. So again. So this is that next spring. So this is the next spring after that, early April. I'd been catching from that swim I'm talking about and another one. They were both completely flooded and underwater, so you had to set your brolly up and your bed chair and whatnot in about 2, 3, 4 inches of water. So it weren't exactly ideal, but the fish were there, and I was catching from these swims, or this one particular swim. Anyway, this one particular week, my missus took the kids, took them away on holiday. And I had the dog. I had to bring her fishing with me. Like, she was only a pup, but I couldn't go in these flooded swims because of the dog. And so my mate Liam, he went in this one particular swim and ended up going on to catch Colin. And I always remember like thinking, like, not aggrieved because like he'd been catching fish. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was real good angling on his part, but the fish were evidently there, and he didn't get down till late on a Friday. Loads of other people had not gone in this swim. Yeah, and I was like, there was only one other on the lake when I got down, and I needed to be in there, but I just simply couldn't because of the dog, and he ended up catching Colin that trip.
The dogs don't come out with you anymore.
No, it was her first and last time. No, she's been a couple of times, but no, they're a bit of a hindrance, you know. They sort of, she is especially, she's so needy. If I get up a tree, she stands at the bottom barking at me, you know.
Give the game away.
Yeah, well, no, it's just annoying, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but a bit of both for it. But, it's funny you talk about reflecting on captures as well. I've had, we've all lost fish over the years. I think I had one on Manor Farm on the Linear Complex back in, like 20 odd years ago. Yeah. And that was the first fish I hooked in there as well. Right. And I swear that was cut tail. Right. Wow. Absolutely swear it was cut tail. I only went down there for a day. It was like, I actually fished the whole winter on there and through into the springtime. And this particular day, I was set up in the first swim that you come to through the gate, which is a pretty good swim, actually, I think. And it was like mid-morning, and I was with a friend, and I climbed up this tree. And while I was up the tree, I was looking out over this spot, and this fish came out of the water. It must have been cut tail. Yeah. I think there was a swan nearby. It was like bigger than the swan. Yeah. And that was, I mean, a 40-pound, still a massive fish, but back then that was like one of the biggest day ticket fish in the country. Yeah, accessible sort of. Yeah. And I climbed down the tree, woke my friend up, who was like, he was spending a lot of time watching the water. He was asleep. Woke him up and said, "Come round into my swim." I said, I reckon I'm going to get a bite. I said, I've just seen a massive fish go right over me. We literally got into the swim. I was just putting the kettle on. No. And it was literally just starting to steam, and it just blasted off. And I had it on, and it was just 20 minutes under the rod tip. And it's just under the rod tip. Wallowing. Oh no. And it was just heavy, really heavy. Oh, and I can remember just like, I'm normally quite calm when I hook fish. Oh, I'm not. Oh, aren't you? Oh, God. I got pieces. Oh, do you? Start saying things like, "I'll be good. Please let this one stay on." Please. Yeah. Oh, I should have probably said that when I had this one on, but it was. I was really nervous, and eventually I remember my friend, he had the net in the water and everything, but it was like far from beaten. It was like that. I don't know whether that cut tail was a hard fighting fish or not. But this thing that I hooked was heavy, and it was hard fighting, and it just stayed basically on the marginal shelf. Yeah. And I just, I I was just pulling, and I said to my friend, it's moving, it's coming up. And it's just...
Oh, no, don't. Sickener.
And I've heard before, people were losing fish on there. I'm sure some people say, if you're hooking them in close on there, they're getting into that marginal shelf. And but that is the only one I've ever had. And I think, I would love to know. I'd love to know what that... Maybe I don't want to know.
No.
Nice
sometimes it's nice not knowing, isn't it?
Oh, cut tail.
Yeah.
So getting back onto catching Colin then. So you talk us through the capture.
So it was in a pit. The lake was busy in the spring, and it got into just after spawning time, summertime, July, August. Lake had quietened right down, and I was on a run of quite a lot of good fish, big uns, all from one particular area. And so been a couple of mornings on the trot where I hadn't got a bite, but I'd been watching fizzing on my spot through the binoculars, and like coots sort of gliding over the spot and just looking down. And do you know what I mean? It was like there were fish down there feeding, and I weren't getting a bite. So that next evening, I redid I baited up and everything again, and I put a bottom bait out there because the spot had become too it was concrete. It even felt deeper, where they dug it out. And but so I put a bottom bait, miscast first time, cranked it in, and hook pointed bird over. So I had to tie a new rig, and I just sort of weren't feeling it. Sort of bit through the motions a little bit, and so once the rods were all out, I'd had my dinner, and I remember speaking to my mate on the phone, to Elliot actually on the phone, and he was telling me how we were talking about it, about how hard it fights and different things. Anyway, I get a bite in the early hours of the morning, just as it's getting light, like it's ripped, and I've picked the rod up and it's going, and usually they hit a few bits of weed and then stop, and then you just pump them back in. That was how I'd had quite a lot of fish, and they'd all done that. This one didn't. Where it should have stopped, it stopped a bit and then gone again. Like, and I'd done another 15 yards of back winding, and then it jammed up solid, and the boat was in my swim. So I remember it was that sort of light where I couldn't work out whether or not to take my head torch with me or not. It was just getting light, you know what I mean? And so I've pulled myself out to this fish, and it's gone solid. So I've hand lined it up. Then so there's been a bit of toing and froing between hand lining and then picking the rod back up and playing it again. Eventually I've bundled a whacking great ball of weed into the net and the fish, or the fish was like lying on in the weed, but I couldn't get the net up over it. It was tons of weed. But eventually I'm over the side of the boat picking all these fronds of weed off until I've got so much off that the fish had sort of exposed itself, and it bolted down into the net, luckily. Right. So then I could get the arms up around it. All the while on my own out in this little bick, leaning over the side trying to do all this. It wasn't easy, It always looks easy, but it's when you're there out there doing it, it's not. And at first I didn't think it was like Colin because it was so short. And then it wasn't until I sort of lifted and pulled the fish over on its side in the net that I realised it was, and it was pretty amazing.
Bit of a lump, that one.
Yeah. It was incredible fish. And it sort of climaxed to that, if you know what I mean.
How obsessed were you? Through that period? I mean, was that taking over?
Yeah, for sure. It was. Yeah, it took over my life a little bit. Every thought, it was that. It was an obsession. Yeah, I was obsessed, really driven by it, to a point where it was really important I caught it, if you know what I mean.
Was it unhealthy?
Yeah, it always is, isn't it? When I think when it gets to that obsessive, because I was that deep in now that I went back on there because it was unfinished business in the beginning, my second stint. I hadn't caught that one, and it was niggling away at me. So the emotion was like...
You got the pictures, Tobe? Have we got Colin anyway?
I don't think I've got any here.
Okay, no, we'll put some pictures up anyway. It'd be good to see some pictures. But,
no, it was wicked. First time I'd ever seen it. I'd never seen it on the bank. Right. It'd never been caught when I was up at the lake. Obviously, I'd have shot round and seen it, but
Was it a regular one on the bank?
2-3 times a year, I suppose.
Quite normal.
Yeah, normal sort of spring, summer, and autumn. But never seemed to get caught on the weekends. It was always midweek. It seemed to get caught.
Was it?
Yeah, it would seem so because in the time I was there, the 2 or 3 captures of it.
And it was a little bit quieter, obviously, like midweek, was it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, tend to get busy. Yeah, definitely busier Friday and Saturday nights. We're always banged out.
Interesting, though,
But
isn't it?
yeah, it was a mega morning. Elliot came down and Jake,
we can see that on
Jake and
topography,
Rich.
can't we? We
Yeah.
can see your
that
account of it on there.
Yeah,
You got the right guy with the camera there as well, haven't
yeah, he
you?
knows what he's doing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elliot travelled quite a way, didn't he, to come and do those pictures?
Yeah. He's got to be getting on an hour, 40 minutes.
Mm.
Dan and Rich were just on a lake just up the road in Cambridge filming, and so they shot over, and between us it was good.
Pretty memorable morning.
Yeah, we went and had a breakfast after that.
Yeah.
Something about that, isn't there? Going
Yeah.
up the calf after catching a big one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that feeling sat in that calf or whatever. You just
sort of mulling
feel
it
like
over in your head.
come back from war.
Yeah, well, about that. But yeah,
Maybe not quite that extreme, maybe.
But no, it's
I bet the missus was happy as well, wasn't she?
well, yeah, she was, yeah, she's got to see me a bit more. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for her. She likes to get rid of me, I think. But
Does she?
nah, she's good, really. She lets me get on and do what I want to do, really, and with my fishing, and as long as I don't take the piss too badly.
Yeah.
She's pretty supportive.
She's lovely, Tobe, isn't she?
Yeah, she looked after us when we went round, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got cakes and everything.
Yeah, got cakes. Yeah, that's the first time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, any other prospective guests?
This
That's
is
what we
Simon's way of
expected.
telling other people
Yeah.
sort the cakes out.
They're not going to be suitable if we don't get cakes, Tobe, are
This is
they?
it.
That's a requirement now.
Yeah. So after that, then, do you? I mean, does that change your mindset with size of fish and what you want to do, or did that not sort of distort anything too much?
No. So in what way? Once you caught
Do you then become just a big fish hunter?
No. Wait, it's up to the individual, isn't it? For me,
Well, you personally.
For me, no. No, it's they've got to have looks as well. I wouldn't just fish for just a big one. It's not, it's a bit. No, it's got to be sort of more than that heritage of a fish. What it means, the lake it lives in, the looks of it. There's loads of things I factor into what I want to fish for and where I want to fish. There's more to it than just be it fishing for a big one. It's a bit soulless, isn't it? But it's each to their own, isn't it? It's that's the beauty of fishing, isn't it? It's whatever you want it to be for you. There's no. It's whatever you get out of your fishing.
I think I go for a lake first. I think I go for somewhere that I think I'm going to be happy.
Yeah, that's
here.
everything, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot of this is all cliche, but it is all the journey. And if you're fishing on a lake that you don't enjoy being at, simply for the end result, simply to catch that particular fish, then that's it. It depends if that outcome outweighs the journey, then great. But I've got to be fishing somewhere I enjoy being.
But don't you think that there's a lot of anglers, well-known anglers that, they've they've done that whole circuit thing and then they've just disappeared off of the radar because that obsession has probably been a little bit too much.
Well, yeah, maybe people get it out of their system, don't they?
Right.
I think.
Would you ever want to get it out I mean,
what, fishing circuit?
Well, fishing in general, because these guys, I mean, it's quite well documented. There are anglers around that you don't know anything about nowadays, and they've just jacked it in. And
yeah, but I couldn't do that. The fishing's in me, and there's no way that's going. But I can see why people fish they fish them circuit lakes for them big uns that. And I see why people go and fish for maybe not such big prestigious carp, but fish on quieter lakes. I get that completely, and I go more that way now. I don't want to be sat opposite loads of people and looking at loads of other people for a couple of days. It's I can see why people do that for sure. Yeah,
but that's not necessarily. We're fishermen at the end of the day, and it's not just about the prize. It's about the whole experience.
Oh, for sure it is. That's everything. The end result, that tangible thing at the end that you pick up, and and you spend a few minutes with, that end result is, of course, that's important, but it's how you get to that as well, isn't it?
It's the whole journey.
It is, and the people you meet, the things you experience on the way. Yes, everything. Yeah.
And given the choice, you'd rather just be able to spread that out over a lifetime, wouldn't you? And just, rather than cram it all in and do, too much in one go and then completely go the other way with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I could cram it all in for a lifetime.
So if you retired tomorrow, would you be fishing full time?
I'd go fishing a lot. Yeah.
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 Obviously a little bit of compromise.
Yeah, a little bit of compromise. Day at home a week, maybe.
Day at home.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
She could go off and do her.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't burn myself out. I'd be conscious of balance is important, isn't it? But yeah, I'm super keen to be out fishing. I love it, but I do it in fits and starts. I'm sort of quite all or nothing, and I'll have periods of 4, 5, 6 weeks where I won't go at all. And I'll be doing something else. But when I do fish, it's generally quite intense sort of. Fishing,
yeah, you've refilled that energy and that enthusiasm to get back out again.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to you about crayfish, and so we should talk about the North Met because I'm thinking about fishing a lake maybe later this year, and I said to you about it, but it's got an awful lot of crayfish in it.
Yeah.
And I know when you were fishing on North Met, that's back in the Lea Valley, pretty close to Carthagena, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and that was part of your experience fishing on there. So, North Met, and well, we'll talk about the lake and how you overcome crayfish in general as well.
Yeah, I'm no expert on crays by any means.
But tell me everything you know anyway.
So you used to drop a handful of bait in the edge, and the crays would be just on it. So they were, it's completely changes the game from normal angling. Like I remember people telling me about the Met that it was quite like stalky sort of water, and you'd find them in quiet bays and that, and you'd get day bites. But my findings of it were you couldn't just like put a rig down the edge and a handful of bait over it, because within about 5 minutes it'd be all gone, and you'd be getting crayfish problems. It was so my fishing anyway was much more agricultural. Sort of I was having to use quite a lot of bait, so I couldn't really fish bang on, like set up on fish. If you did, by the time you'd got all your rigs in place. And
sorry, would you use more bait than you would normally be comfortable using?
Yeah, I was fishing over the amount of bait you'd usually bait up with, or I was fishing like out my open water fishing. I'd maybe put 1.5 buckets of bait out, not just seed. I'm talking like 4 or 5 key boilies a night, and pellet, and a few other bits and pieces, bigger stuff, maize or whatever, like a couple of kilos of corn, just to feed the crays off really, and give them like so many more, however chance it is of them picking your rig up. There's all them thousands of food items out there, so that minimises the chance of them picking you up, which isn't an ideal scenario for maybe picking out them bigger, warier ones, when you're fishing over all that amount of bait.
Well, actually, you just brought us back onto the other lake that you're fishing at the moment, and you were saying that some of the guys, they were catching on single tigers, just leaving a sort of a single bait out there, and that seems to be the way of catching the bigger fish.
Yeah.
But in a normal situation, obviously, when you're fishing with a lot of crayfish in the water, you are potentially
if you were to just have a little trap, you'd be crayed in minutes, wouldn't you? But so I'm just going on what I found. You certainly wouldn't want to be fishing like that in spring, but after they'd spawned, so summer and autumn, I was fishing over bait, quite a lot of bait.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, the fishing for you really it'd be more beneficial fishing after that sort of springtime when you can get away with putting more bait in the water.
Yeah, in that way. Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. But I mean, but in the spring on there, I was fishing the shallower, weedier water anyway, which wasn't so bad for the crays anyway.
Right.
There wasn't so many up there, but they're still up there. They were still up that north end, but that's where I did a lot of my fishing, like early spring and into May and early June, really.
But you weren't necessarily trying to avoid the areas where the crays are, because we're saying as well that the carp are feeding on the crays.
Without doubt, yeah. I'm sure they make up a big part of their diet. When I was fishing out in open water, I was always building on my next trip, even like them big bait ups each night I was fishing over. Even if nothing happened, you're another step into like prepping that zone, if you like. Do you know what I mean? Even if you didn't get a bite, you'd be building it up for the next week. And after a while, there was a couple of areas I was fishing where you could fish real bait because you weren't getting crayed. I'm sure that was where the carp were spending so much time feeding in them zones that either the crayfish had just got out of there or they'd been eaten or whatever, you know. But it built it up to such a degree that, I wasn't getting bothered by the crays, you know. But again, that might have been where they weren't on the bait so much. I'd only done a couple of years on there, so I'm by no means an expert on crays, but they definitely changed the game with regards to the way you've got to be and approach your fishing in that.
Did you ever notice that? Sorry, the reason why I alluded to that other rig is because you were saying that you would go on and fish over big beds of bait and not necessarily catch the biggest fish in the lake.
Yep.
And you've been in a position where you've seen somebody that is fishing with tiger nets or whatever. They're basically effectively not fishing with any bait, and then they end up catching the biggest fish in the lake. Could you notice the same thing with the crays? Because obviously, people are not putting any bait out and just fishing with singles and maybe catching the unusual ones. Yeah,
I think so. I think they were probably the lads that weren't getting many bites and they were getting crayed all the time. But ultimately, it wasn't always the big one, but there was one in there called
unusual
Moonscale.
ones.
Yeah. One of the big ones, but quite a rare one. Awkward, like carp to trip up, you know. And I think that was getting those lads that weren't catching many fish, but only using a tiny bit of bait, you know, they're probably getting crayed a lot. They were they caught that fish. Two or three lads I know that weren't using much bait caught that one.
Were you cottoned onto that as well, that they were doing that?
But sort of maybe a little bit after the event. That's maybe in years after I fished it, you know. It's hindsight, isn't it? It wasn't while I was on there, but if I went back for that one, I think I'd changed my approach. But it's all hindsight, isn't it?
But it's all. I mean, people listening to this podcast now and just talking about this now, you kind of store that information away for another day. Don't you?
You can't help but.
I will do.
No, I mean, I watch loads of stuff on lakes that I might be going to fish, and you remember bits and pieces, don't you? Bait
wise, they were crays. I mean, did you find anything that they didn't?
No, I think they. What I would say is like they would go on to an easier meal, so they would eat more edible food. So i.e. boilies and that. If there was a shrimp trap boiling alongside like a load of other boilies, they would have a go at that one, but then they'd move on to the easier meal.
This is too much hassle. And
it seemed that way.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
You'd in the morning you'd seen your rig would be slightly like your shrink wrap be slightly done, but not a lot. So I'm sure that's where it's all, you don't know, do you? But it's if buts and maybes. But I think that's where they've had a look and had a go and then gone, nah, we'll have some of this other bait.
Right.
But I don't know.
The North Met in general, just talking about the lake itself, that's a gnarly looking lake, isn't it?
Yeah, mega pit. Like it's got everything. Like literally everything. Loads of open water, loads of islands, bays, deeps, shallows. It's like the complete carp lake. I know some really good anglers that have sort of cut their teeth on there, if you like. Lots of anglers. Lots of good anglers have fished on that lake.
Again, it's a fairly open ticket, isn't it?
It's quite accessible ticket. Yeah, it's Lea Valley Parks. Get your ticket through them, and I got a ticket straight away.
We'll put a Google Earth picture up actually after this podcast, just to give just to look at the lake itself and the surrounding lakes. But there's a lot of good lakes all around that area.
Loads in that valley. Yeah, there's loads.
God, you're lucky if you live in that area, aren't you?
Yeah, you've got a lifetime of fishing, haven't you? But yeah, it's a very broken up sort of lake.
So how would you tackle that, Luke?
I just tried to, just got on fish really, I suppose. Did lots of walking. I wore out several pairs of walking trainers on that lake, walking the towpaths, believe it or not. But I did loads of walking. Didn't always commit to swims till late sometimes.
Did you find yourself fishing the same swims over and over?
Yeah,
or?
I was come summer and autumn when I was building areas up. I was being able to get on back in areas and that. But in the spring, it was they were very mobile fish. You'd see the same fish in the evening, 40 acres or up the other end of the pit, like 60 acres of water away. Those same fish you'd have seen in the morning. Two complete opposite ends of the lake.
They migrate a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were just saying then about building a swim up. That seems to come up a lot with you as well. That you spend a lot of time maybe building something up and building up to getting something to happen.
Yeah.
So is that a continuous like baiting approach?
I think you're trying to force something, aren't you? Sometimes. Don't know, baiting you. You're sort of fishing when you're not fishing, aren't you? Like you can bait up when you leave, and that's working for you, isn't it? While you're not at the pond.
Are there any lakes that you ever fish where you don't build with bait?
I always try. No, not really. You're always building, aren't you? Whether it's to what you see, zones you try and prep. Often they don't come to fruition, but sometimes they do. They really definitely do.
And you build a lot of different areas.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah.
I've got a Google Earth image of the lakes if you want to see it.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well done, Tobe.
That's all right. Let's have a look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realise how busy it was around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like another. It's certainly like another calm valley, and the lakes look amazing. There's some really, really big fish around there.
That north end was. I did quite a lot of fishing up there in the spring. I loved it up there. It was like very broken up.
That picture doesn't really do it justice, does it?
No, it doesn't really. But I mean, you could only ever see a small fraction of the lake from wherever you were. Apart from the open water, obviously you got to see all the open water. But then the islands end, there was areas where they could be showing, and you wouldn't be able to see them. And same with the north end. So.
And that area at the top there, so for the people that are listening to this, that top end of the lake is, I don't know, what's this?
That's just the canal that runs behind the
canal.
lake. Yeah.
Right.
That towpath, I walked that quite a few times.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm just exploring here.
Yeah.
No, you carry on exploring, Tobe. See if you can get another picture of the lake, actually.
Give me a sec.
But that top end of the lake is it out of bounds?
No. The out of bounds is up the island's end. There's a little area of out of bounds. Then you've got the north end of the main lake, if you like, and then there's a pipe that separates that from what they call the North Lake.
That's right, that pipe.
There's a pipe which they use regularly. I caught quite a few fish around that, especially in the spring. Like I caught quite a few fish, even just the other side of that pipe.
And was it always common knowledge that the fish were always using the pipe?
No. A lot of the lads would have been up the other end, oblivious to it, but they were up there. I mean, that North Lake was very, very irregularly fished. Is that a good word? Irregular. Yeah, infrequently. Yeah, hardly anyone ever fished up there. But they definitely got in there. Not as much as the main lake, but in the spring. I don't know whether or not they overwintered up there. It's quite sheltered, snaggy, shallow area. Stands to reason they might spend a lot of time up there in the winters. I don't know.
And you spent a lot of time fishing at that end of the lake?
Not in the North Lake itself, but the north end of the main lake. Yeah, I found it quite quiet up there. There was always fish up there. There was a couple of areas I really had rocking, and I was catching quite a lot of fish from on the quiet, really.
But you think they were coming in and out of there while you were
I do,
fishing
yeah.
there?
And I think they were coming out of the main lake and into that. I mean, it was much carpier up there. In the spring, the weed was up. It was shallow. Felt like a different lake at times to the main body and the island's end, where it was barren of weed, and there was loads more going up the north end. And they wouldn't always be there in the daytimes when people were walking around looking for fish and before they'd set up, But come the evening, they might come all active, and all of a sudden there's a big pod of fish up there that only you're fishing for. It was good.
So on that lake, what you're seeing during the morning isn't necessarily what you're going to be seeing at night at all.
No, and they would move and staying ahead of them. It was Yeah, it was. They were definitely. I've definitely found them using that end a lot. In the end, like a few people cottoned onto it, I think, but not before I was able to. Like, I don't know. It was busy early spring when fish were using like these reed pools and stuff. But then after that, especially if a few fish got caught from the island's end, everyone just ignored the north end. It seemed. But yeah.
You tried to find maybe staying off the pressure as much as you could as well. And
yeah, if I could.
You like the Pied Piper?
Yeah, well, I don't know that.
I know a guy at work here was saying he started fishing there, and he said that what you were doing that was a little bit different was, well, you were catching in open water earlier on in the year. He wasn't necessarily expecting to see so many open water bites. Did you find that on there?
Yeah. Well, he was catching a few in the...
No. You were catching in open water.
Yeah, only like sort of July onwards, I suppose.
Was that an unusual time of the year to be catching out there?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe usually I think it's more autumn time, I think. But they were out there. Like I wasn't fishing... Like they were out there before I fished for them, if you know what I mean. I only fished out there because in the mornings I'd see they'd be putting on big shows right out in the middle of the open water. And there was a couple of swims which were known for being good zones. If they were out in open water, that's where you wanted to be. And I was getting in. There was a couple of swims. I was getting in one or two of them each trip, really.
Centrally based area.
Yeah, yeah, with a little bit of features going on out there and stuff, which they sort of come back to. And,
a lot of features in that, like.
Yes, up and down. Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah, like typical gravel pit, especially up like the islands. And there's loads of bars and humps and bumps. Yeah, there is a lot of features. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the fish that were in there? So what were you fishing for when you?
Yeah. So there was the big one was called Els, which I never caught that one, but photographed it for a couple of times. Baby Basil was another mega one, which I photographed for my mate Luke.
I've got a picture of that one.
I caught that in the summertime in the end. I caught a few of the good ones, but yeah, that's Baby Basil, mega old carp.
That looks really similar to me, Luke. That looks quite similar to one of those Carthagena fish, actually.
Does it? Yeah. What the little
do you not
small
think?
tail? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Lovely carp.
Yeah. It was cool. Beat me up playing it. I've never had one do it before, but I'd be playing it and it'd boil up on the surface, then bore back down and flat rod me. Yeah, real aggressive, sort of like, people say, oh, they know what they're doing. Like this one knew exactly what he was doing. It was just coming up, wallowing, and then almost hitting the floor, I think, trying to rid me of the hook.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
And sorry, what else? So you had Els. That went over £50.
No, I didn't catch Els.
But that was the biggest one.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So that was the big one. That was there was Moonscale. That was a mega carp. There was it was a big head of big uns. It wasn't like by any means like a 1 or 2 fish lake. There was a big head of good fish, lots of 30-pounders. Even if even one of the better ones gets caught, it's still loads of fish to play for, if you know what I mean. It's
Again,
the first lake I'd ever fished like that, I suppose, where you've got a big head of big fish. And it's sort of a numbers game, I suppose, is the way I looked at it.
I don't think I've ever been in that position where you've been able to fish a lake where, bites are on the cards, and, you're catching fish at that sort of stamp as well. It's normally one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's right. It was great. It was great in as much as I was just trying to get as many bites as I could, and, you'd get a few big ones on the way, which...
So did you have any particular goals sort of, regarding fishing the lake and, what you were going to catch before you decided to fish somewhere else?
No, not really. Baby Basil, after I photographed it for my mate, that was right up there. That blew me away. He had it early April as well. That was mega. One called the Italian, which I did catch.
I've got that one here as well.
I always had that, for years. I had that on my phone, a picture of that. Quite unique, sort of.
Yeah, that one's different.
Yeah, he was mega.
Yeah, looking at...
I caught that in the spring. I saw it behind an island, and then that day, and I baited in. I'd been baiting in behind the island, and then fishing just my sort of side of it. And
Beard's getting a bit out of control in
I
that
was
picture,
gonna
isn't
say,
it?
Hair's getting a bit out of control as well.
I like that fish, Luke. That's
It's proper old
real,
school mirror.
That's a real brute, that is, isn't
cool,
it?
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a bit, so it's quite a wild lake in regards to actually knowing really what was in there as well then. Would you put a figure on exactly what you think was there?
Amounts of fish. I sort of pretty much had a good idea of all the individual fish, but amounts, very hard to say. The parks had stocked it lots of times over the years. So there was quite a few small ones. I was getting amongst quite a few small ones up the north end, but there were big ones up there as well. I was catching some good ones amongst them.
It's good they got the foresight to do that, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
for
To
sure.
keep that.
Yeah, before it's all too late. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome lake. You've had a lot of notable anglers fishing on there over the years as well. And I imagine there's quite a lot of competition, dare I say it, on there as well.
Yeah, springtime was carnage up there. It's a few lads with a lot of time on their hands, but then come the summertime, it lake quietened off, and it was really nice, real nice bit of fishing actually. You could properly angle for them and fish for them where they were, and yeah, it was good. It was good, real enjoyable bit of fishing. Yeah.
But we said as well, didn't we, that sometimes when you've got a good angler turn up on the lake, someone that it kind of it lifts everybody else's game as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. You definitely had that on there. It was, there's a few good anglers fishing on there when I was on there. I made quite a lot of mates actually fishing in that area, full stop. But lads that I still mates with now, it's definitely a nice vibe on that lake, and nice place to fish. And
would you get trouble on there because it was a public park? It looked a bit.
Yeah, there was
a little bit wild.
Yeah, there was always something going on. Yeah, it was you wouldn't really want to leave your gear certain times of the day and go walking. You always had to walk like before midday, before the kids were about. You know what I mean? And it was only in the mornings. The only people you'd see were dog walkers and joggers. So that was a good time to go walking and leave your kit, or leave your sort of swim a bit barricaded and leave your radio on. That sort of thing. But there were several times when people got their gears like little bits robbed. No one went over there intentionally looking to thieve tackle, but there was always things going on, and lots of swimmers. They're
allowed to swim in there?
No, you're not supposed to. People have died over the years swimming in there.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's one afternoon in the summertime, like with the naked women swimming out in the lake.
That's right.
Like one of them, like as she walked out the lake, it was like something out of James Bond. That was that brightened up the afternoon.
Well, it breaks it all up a little bit.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
Yeah.
But it's a fun. There's always something going on. You know what I mean? It's not your typical bit of fishing.
But it sounds great. And another water which I'd like to have a walk around there sometime actually.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, it's
yeah.
Good place.
There's too many lakes now.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
but North Met is definitely over the last 10 years or so. It's like it is one of those.
Yeah, some mega fishing there still.
Big waters, yeah,
and they're doing good weights as well. That basil's like that's real big now, and lots of big fish.
Yeah. I think it's been a really good podcast.
Yeah, good.
Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's been good.
It's been, once you get the headphones on and just get into the flow a little bit, Luke, isn't it? It's great. Yeah. Fishing plans for the next?
This year I don't really know. I'm just a little bit up in the air, but I've got a few lakes I want to perhaps have a go on, but nothing like concrete yet. But
just play it.
I'm sure. I'll be out. I'll be out and about.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've really enjoyed this. This has been a really, really good podcast. All the best with the coming season.
Yeah, good.
Luke, thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, Simon.
Cheers.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.